what's the most effed up thing a guest did in your house? I was the guest at my sister's house. We were getting really drunk with her husband, and her husband's friend. I needed to pee, and her husband told me to go pee in the bush behind his garage. So I stumbled over there and whipped out my junk and began to take the longest piss of my life. About 4 seconds in, I heard a sound coming towards me. It was my sister's big, dumb, beautiful golden retriever. Jasper, the dog, is a real attention whore. Apparently, he wanted to get my attention while I was peeing, so he ran under the stream and tried to roll around in it. I pinched off the stream, at great personal peril, and spun around 180 degrees and let the stream go. Jasper thought this was a new game. He ran around me and started playing in the stream again. In my drunken state, I started to aim off to the sides, but Jasper was not as drunk as I was. He reacted to my evasive maneuvers much quicker than I expected. He bit at the stream and frolicked in it until my bladder was empty. Then, with a big, dumb grin on his face, Jasper ran back to my sister. I had to follow him and tell everyone not to touch the dog because he had just been playing water sports. My brother-in-law's friend laughed so hard he nearly fell into the fire pit. The dog got bathed and couldn't have been happier. My sister was mortified. Her husband thought it was hilarious. Story 2. I hosted. I was watching my cousin's dog at the time. Really cute West Highland White Terrier. I had made a rainbow cake using food coloring. It's really hard to get off clothes or skin because it just gets stuck. I'm pretty sure you can guess where this is going. Well, while I was sleeping, passed out, my friends dyed my cousin's dog with different food colorings. I was so pissed. It wasn't enough that my cousin's parents were picking up the dog next morning, but they also used my expensive colors and refused to pay for them or the shampoo I needed for the dog. They had also poured green liquor on the dog and hoped to dye her with the liquor first, so she was a sticky color mess. The color didn't even wash off properly, so I paid for her next trimming. My cousin and her family were so mad, the color wasn't even the worst thing. It was the liquor. No, we're not friends anymore. Story 3. Almost every time my mom came to my house, she did something effed up. She would break things or decide something needed fixing and call up whatever repair or service person was, and then just present me with the bill when I came home from work. She flooded my kitchen once, which leaked out all over my living room and warped my hardwood floors. I came home once and she had repainted my kitchen. But the worst was when she left candles burning and we woke up to my living room in flames. Almost killed us both. I live in Asia now, in a small studio apartment. So when she comes to Asia, which has only happened once so far, she can't stay in my home. Story 4. When I was young, I was in Cub Scouts, and we decided to build all our Pinewood Derby cars at my house one year. So my whole little crew comes over, including this kind of weird dude named Ricky. After about an hour of building, Ricky goes into the bathroom for like an hour, and then leaves the bathroom, says goodbye without slowing down, and walks out the front door and gets picked up by his dad outside. My dad was kind of like, WTF? So he goes and looks at the bathroom, and god damn, there was tiny little crappy fingerprints on literally every surface of our bathroom, like seat, handle, toilet paper, walls, sink handles, soap bar, goddamn everything. And yes, we had to clean all that crap up. But Ricky ended up with the nickname Dickie Crap Prince, so joke's on him, I guess. Story 5. I had a friend that spent the night over at my house when I was 9. She accidentally crapped her pants overnight, but instead of going to the bathroom, she just took her underwear off and threw it under my bed. After she left, my mom told me my room smelled terrible and she couldn't figure out where it was coming from. Eventually, we found her dirty poopy panties under my bed. After that, she was no longer allowed to stay over. Eventually, she invited me to her place for a sleepover. Since she only had one bed, we had to share it. I woke up in the middle of the night, soaking wet and freezing cold because she had wet the bed and me. I had to lay in that bed all night, just hoping that morning would come soon so I could get up and take a bath. So why did you just lay in the bed all night knowing that you're like in ice cold piss and waiting for the sun to come up? Like, I would have gotten out of that bed and slept on the floor, rinsed off, taken a shower. I mean, I know you're only 9 years old, but there's no way that you should just be laying there. Obviously, you can't sleep, right? So just laying there in a massive puddle of piss. What the heck? Story 6. A girl came over during a party. She'd obviously had a few drinks. First, she tried making out with me, which I'm generally in favor of, but she was trashed and could hardly walk, so we set her on a couch. She didn't stay there, though. She took one of the hockey sweaters I hang on the wall, put it on, and sat on the floor, banging her hands and singing to whatever song was on. It was so obnoxious, but harmless, and thankfully she stopped because a few minutes later, she pukes all over my sweater, herself, and the floor. Not great. We get her to the bathroom, where she promptly passes out, which is generally a good spot to do so, except when it's 10 p.m. and people are still coming over, and there's one bathroom in the place. We eventually just unlock the door, find her sleeping naked in the bathtub, in her own puke. Happy as F, thanking us for inviting her, etc. We left her there, drew the shower curtain, and she either passed out or got to hear everyone piss for the night. She woke up at around 4 a.m. and climbed into my bed, where I was blissfully sleeping. Keyword was. I had to call her a cab and pay him up front because, shockingly, she lost everything she owns in someone's car. Then I got to throw my sheets and blankets in the laundry and sleep on the couch. We're still friends. She apologized plenty, but that wasn't a good night for her. Story 7. Friend living in Europe came to US to visit family. Her husband was here for a couple weeks, but went back to Europe for work while she stayed with us for the summer. Unbeknownst to us, she had stopped taking her medications and started racking up long-distance phone calls to Europe in the middle of the night/early morning to talk to her husband. But if she called his office and he wasn't there, she would just ask to be put on hold until he returned to the office. Received a $3,000 phone bill and realized what had happened. Thankfully, our phone company at the time listened to my story and agreed not only to set us up with an international plan to call Europe cheaply, but they made it retroactive to when she started staying with us. $3,000 became less than $200. Story 8. My two bonehead friends were at a party at my house this past Halloween. This was a brand new house with all new crap in it. I noticed them go missing for a while and went to go check to make sure they were okay. I go to the room where we were keeping all the jackets and I notice the door is locked. I hear two people giggling, so normally I would think someone was hooking up or something, but all the women were accounted for. So I get the keys out to open the door and the giggling gets louder, and the second I unlock the door, it quickly locks again. Then it happened. The ground starts rumbling and I hear, "For the Shire." Kaboom! These two effers idiots break down my door in my brand new house and I'm on the other side. I got effing crushed. I was also holding a beer, which got smashed. These guys are going to be in my wedding party this year. They bought me a new door and trim and installed it all. My fiance didn't talk to them for weeks. And she was mad at me too. Effing guys. Story 9. I had a house party in college that was broken up by the cops. When the red and blue lights started flashing into the windows of my bedroom, where myself and probably 5 or 6 other folks were partaking in illicit drug use, this chick whom I do not know just dashes out of my room in a panic. She returns in an instant with a jar of my peanut butter and begins mashing her goddamn fingers into it and shoveling huge globs down her gullet. At this point, high on illicit drugs, I vividly remember yelling in a manner that reminds me of Jessie from BB. "What the F, yo?" She can barely open her mouth or use her tongue because her crap is so covered in my effing food, as she explains to the whole crowd that eating peanut butter will beat a breathalyzer test, before tearing back out into the night. I've never seen her again. The cops are super nice, just ask everyone to leave, and I wake up the next morning, which is when I see it. This peanut butter female dog cleaned her grody little claws all over my effing walls on her way out the house. There were streaks of peanut butter down the hall, down the stairwell, and all over my goddamn couch by the front door, where my pillaged jar of peanut butter lay like a cowering victim by the welcome mat. I'm still betrayed. Story 10. When I was a kid, me and my friends were over at a birthday party. We were playing hide and seek, and one of the kids pissed in the kitchen sink because he had to go, and didn't want to reveal his location. None of us knew about it at the time, but later my parents got a phone call asking if I did it. My dad sat me down and asked me straight up. I looked at him like he had 3 heads and said, "No, I'm not 5. He then laughed his ass off at the idea of some middle schooler pissing in someone's kitchen sink. Edit. Everyone is asking me how the parents knew. I have no idea. My dad just got the call. I can ask my friend, who is the child of the house owner, if you all doubt me that much. Edit 2. My friend got back to me and said that the drain in the kitchen was clogged so that piss was just sitting in there. Honestly, that doesn't surprise me. The kid who did it was weird. Story 11. Ooh, I have a story. My little brother is autistic. Naturally, when there was another kid with autism who came into the neighborhood for a block party, we invited him over. They had fun, seemed like a cool kid. He asked to use our bathroom, and we said sure, of course. He was in there for about a half hour, and then he suddenly scurried out of the house and ran off somewhere. When my mother went in next, she found the walls covered in finger-painted feces. All our white towels were covered in brownish green streaks, and there was brown stains all over the sink top and the rug on the floor. But the rug was upside down. Flip over the rug, it was even more covered in fecal matter. It was incredible. Bleach bombed the place with my mom. Never saw the kid again. Story 12. One of my friends, who had never been to my house himself, invited along a homeless person he just met to my parents' house and told me they were his friend, so I assumed he was vouching for them, who then repeatedly insulted me, spat all over my kitchen sink and flowers, argued with my other teetotaler friend about how they should do psychedelics, refused to leave, and tried to guilt trip me into inviting them to stay, even though 1. It wasn't even my house, and 2. I'm pretty sure they were homeless by choice and their parents were wealthy and lived nearby. Then insisted I drive them on an hours-long drug run, which I discovered they expected me to pay for. Blasted crappy music deafeningly loudly, turned the radio up as far as the dial would go. I spent the whole time trying not to cry, and then jumped into the front seat to turn it back whenever I tried to lower it, and then spent the entire car ride headbanging and trying to pull the headrests off the seats in front, all while I was driving. They left all their crap at my place during this drive, so we had to go back there, and they would just not leave. They also wandered around touching a bunch of donuts and a Krispy Kreme with their bare hands and put them back. And when I told them to either stop or just take them, they said, "Fight me." They also bragged about stealing crap and insisted that paying for public transit was for squares, and they just wandered up to strangers and confidently took cigarettes from their hands and smoked them, counting on them to be too stunned to say anything, which worked every time. Somehow, my dog had a medical emergency that night, and I needed to leave them both and bounce, which I'm sure looked like a lie at the time, but luckily Doggo was okay, and I drove another 40 minutes to drop Crazy Pants off the metro and never looked back. I'm still effing baffled at how that happened, and how my friend got me into that effing situation with no warning and never apologized. It was effing crazy. Story 13. I have this one friend who ends up doing something effed up every time he stays over. One time he crapped himself. Not even drunk. This man is in his late 20s, so I figured he would be all set to take a shower to clean himself up. He was in there for over half an hour before the shower shut off. Meanwhile, the rest of us are drinking and chatting in the kitchen. After 10 minutes of audible clanking and thumping with him moving crap around in my bathroom, the shower turns back on. It is literally another half hour before he finally comes out of the bathroom and everything in the room is moved. The counter and walls appear to have been washed. All the little bathroom rugs are in different spots, and various cleaning products from beside the toilet are against the opposite wall. To this day, I'm not sure what happened in that room while he was in there, but I haven't felt completely comfortable in my own bathroom since. Bonus story. Same guy. We had a few friends over for dinner, and he was acting very odd while everyone was at the table, eating. He was uncharacteristically quiet and evasive. Later that same night, he admitted to us that he was indeed self-pleasuring at my effing kitchen table with a group of people sitting there with him. Story 14. Okay, so this one time I had my best buddy from elementary and middle school down to visit me from out of state. Awesome dude. Love having him around whenever I can. We went to visit my brother at his college dorm for some parties. Friend and I are both about 21 to 22 at this point. Brother and his friends are 18 to 19. We hit the bars downtown, get rip-roared, and proceed to walk back to the dorms and crash on various couches. I stayed up till about 5 a.m. hanging out with one of the roommates because we'd had vodka Red Bull and sleep wasn't going to be possible for a bit. At right around 4:45, we hear running water from the kitchen and both wondered who was up. As we walk out into the kitchen, we see out-of-state friend sleepily standing in front of the open refrigerator, taking a piss all over everything in there. I'm saying all over everything, full spray. Brother's roommate and I both simultaneously ask, But why? Out-of-state friend says, "Want to suck it?" and then goes unconscious. By far, the worst thing done to anybody's place that I've seen personally. In his defense, out-of-state friend replaced everything in the fridge and cleaned it out to the extreme before everyone else woke up the next day. Probably ended up cleaner than it had been in years. All of Bro's friends say it's one of their favorite stories from college. Edit. Let the record show that my brother has been my roommate for the 8 years following the piss incident, and he suggested I post it. Hey, I know we all have our drunken nights and escapades and so forth, but only a true friend would take ownership for screwing up and then totally undo and fix the damage. So yeah, he's a real one. Hope you guys are still friends. Story 15. Years ago, I lived in a mobile home. Me and my SO. To help with bills and rent, we took in a guy as a roommate short term. Was supposed to be a week. Was my neighbor's father. I should have figured out right there when he didn't let his dad stay with him. Day 1. Set up a computer in his room. That's cool. Play World of Warcraft or whatever you do. Nope. He was watching cam girls at high volume. Day 2. I come home to my door locked. My key isn't working. This dude had the audacity to change my locks while I'm at work. He said he didn't feel safe. Day 3. I had friends over for a barbecue. We worked at the same fast food restaurant that may or may not serve tacos. The store manager closed on Tuesdays. We were off as a group. Every Tuesday we'd eat and drink, etc. He brings some chick home without giving us a heads up, and they're having sex in his room with the bedroom door open. I'm walking my buddy's 3-year-old son to the bathroom as he didn't want to go alone. That's when we saw him. Seriously, now I don't even invite people to my house. Meet me somewhere. Nobody's coming over. Story 16. Most recently was a good friend's girlfriend. I love him to death and I miss hanging out with him, but I think his girlfriend is an idiot and she's not welcome in my house. I'm the kind of person that feels someone's home is sacred. You show them respect when you're in their home, and expect respect from those who come into your home. They came over for a game night. Mind you, this is my second time ever meeting this female dog, and I already did not care for her. But he was happy to be seeing someone, and I wanted to give her another chance. I should preface, there are 2 bathrooms in my house. One is the public bathroom, middle of the hall for everyone. My roommates are in charge of keeping this bathroom clean, and generally do a good job. The second one is my private bathroom in my bedroom, which is the master bedroom. No one uses that bathroom but me. Now, I will fully admit, my bathroom is kind of gross, but again, it's my private bathroom nobody should be seeing. Also, I close my bedroom door when I have guests over. So this female dog gets up and says she has to use the bathroom. She's gone an awful long time, then comes back and just goes, "Your bathroom is disgusting, just so you know." I thought my roommates had cleaned the main bathroom, but I could be wrong. So I apologize and say, well, my roommates are usually good about keeping it clean, but you know we all work a lot and don't always have time to... No. The hallway in the bathroom is fine. Your bathroom. I wanted to see what your room was like, so I walked in and looked around. Your bathroom is effing gross. There's no excuse for that. Respect for my friend, who I've known for 18 years, is the only reason I didn't kick this female dog out of my effing house. Who the hell did she think she was? My bedroom door was closed. Who does that? As a guest in someone's house, goes through and gives themselves a private tour without asking the host, then criticizes them for their own private areas that they've closed off. This is like... I'm not very easily offended, but this crap just pissed me off hard. I miss my buddy a lot, but they've been together for a year now and there's no getting rid of her. I refuse to hang out with him with her around. Story 17. My old roommate's girlfriend's brother came over one night to just hang out and have some beers with all of us. We ended up drinking quite a bit, so we told him he could just crash on the couch for the night. He told us he'd take off in the morning. Well, my roomies and I wake up around 8 a.m. for work and he's still sleeping. Whatever. I got back home at 6 p.m. and he was still there. Not only was he still in our house, but he was lying on the couch shirtless watching TV. He also had proceeded to drink all our beers throughout the day and eat all my leftovers I had in the fridge. I was more weirded out than upset, but I was like, you gotta go, dude. He left without any fuss, but it was so effing bizarre. I guess it was more weird than effed up, but still pretty effed up. Story 18. Late December 2015. My roommate and I were hosting a bunch of mid to late 20-something high school friends in Washington, D.C. for our annual Festivus celebration. One really bad hombre took a massive drunk crap on the carpeted stairs to the basement, where I sleep. It happened very late at night, so no one noticed until I stepped in it heading upstairs to use the bathroom at like 5 a.m. I 1-foot hopped to the kitchen sink and scrubbed like a madman. Then I covered it with a note saying, "Poop? Human?" Since we have a dog and I foolishly assumed he might be the culprit. Good deed done, I smoked a bowl to ease the poop foot trauma and returned to bed. By the time the guilty party awoke, we knew it was him. 2 guys had seen him in the act and tried yelling at him to stop, but got no response, so they gave up and passed back out. We let the poop bandit speculate on who it might have been for 10 to 15 minutes before we brought his blackout world crashing down around him. He did a subpar cleaning job and left. Perhaps the worst part, as you might guess, there's no toilet paper on my stairs. In his blackout state, he did no cleaning, which was almost certainly why the Uber driver refused to let him in the vehicle that morning. He had to call his fiancée and explain why he needed her help getting back home to Virginia. You know, you can't blame the Uber driver for not letting him into the car, but, could he not have taken a shower and, had someone make a run to the store and get him some new shorts? I don't understand why he needed his fiancée to come get him from Virginia. A little excessive. Story 19. Gonna preface this by saying I can't prove a thing. When my boys were around 8 to 10, they had a sleepover. 4 to 5 boys from the neighborhood. One of the boys was weird. Know how you sometimes get that hair on the neck feeling about some people? So I didn't like this kid. Tried not to have him in my house, but he had to be included in the sleepover because neighbors. We had 2 kittens. The original idea was a tent in the backyard, but the weather wasn't good, so the tent ended up in the middle of the den. 2-story house. Upstairs were bedrooms and bathroom. Downstairs was the tent in the den and a guest bathroom. After all the kids went to sleep, I went upstairs to my bedroom. There was no reason for any kid to be upstairs during the night. When I woke up in the morning, there's water coming from under the upstairs bathroom door, and the door is unlocked. I pound on the door. No answer. I run downstairs to check on the boys. All still in the tent, but there's water raining down through the ceiling and onto the tent. I grab a screwdriver and run back upstairs. Pry open the bathroom door. Water is running in the bathtub, and there's a dead kitten floating in it. I turn off the water, lay down some towels to absorb the water, shut and lock the bathroom door, run back downstairs to check the kids again, all still asleep. I wake them up, tell them there's been an accident with the plumbing, get them out of the water-soaked den, into their clothes, and send them home. Except this weird kid. He refuses to leave. I settle my boys, and the weird kid who will not leave, down in front of the TV with some breakfast. Go back upstairs to sort out the bathroom, and the poor dead kitten. I have no idea what happened, but I don't like what's running through my mind. I lock myself into the bathroom so the boys don't wander in. I'm mopping water and wondering, WTF am I going to do with a dead kitten, and how the hell will I ever explain this to my kids when, guys, this weird kid starts knocking on the bathroom door. Conversation through the door. I need to use the bathroom. Use the one downstairs. I want to use this one. Go downstairs. What's wrong in there? Do you need some help? Is something wrong? I can help you. No. Use the bathroom downstairs. Oh, have you seen the kitten? I can't find him. I'm sure the kitten is around someplace. Go downstairs. Can I come in the bathroom and look for the kitten? Guys, I freak the F out. Creepy, sadistic bastard. I don't care if he was only 8 years old. You need to go home. My parents can't come get me yet. It's too early. Then walk. It's only half a block. I'll call your mom and tell her you're coming. I unlocked the bathroom door to get that weird effing crazy kid downstairs and to call his parents. Had to body check that kid to keep him out of the bathroom. He literally tried to run around me. Think that effing kid drowned the kitten in the bathtub in the middle of the night. Left the water running because he wanted one of the other kids to wake up with the water coming down through the ceiling and find the dead kitten. When that didn't work, he tried to discover the dead kitten himself. I cleaned everything up. Told my kids that the kitten had gotten trapped in the bathroom and accidentally hurt himself. Thank goodness they were young enough to buy it. Had a kitten funeral later that day. I never let that kid in my house again. I didn't tell his parents anything about what happened because, frankly, his parents were as weird as he was. I'm waiting for the day I hear his name on the news and I find out he's a serial killer. Story 20. Back in high school, I was throwing a party at my house. Now, during the night, this couple came up and asked me if they could use my guest room to fool around. I said, go ahead, that's what the room is for. Well, about 5 minutes after that exchange, this neckbeard with a hard-on for the chick who just went up with her boyfriend went upstairs and started banging on the door. They locked it. He tried to just walk in. I hear the noise, so I go to the entrance and look upstairs at the guest room door, to which at that point, I see this neckbeard do this SWAT team kick and break open my door. I ask him WTF and he says, it's rude for people to lock your doors in your own house. I just kicked his ass out. This was like one of many creepy ass crap he did too. And thought about how am I going to explain the door to my mom. Story 21. A guy I was seeing called me late one night and asked if he could come over. I said yes, as I did not realize how crap-faced he was. He got dropped off by a cab, and when I went outside to let him in, he was pissing on the side of the building. Took him upstairs, and he could barely articulate what he wanted. Is your room that where there was? So he found my room, sat down, and put his head in his hands, and legitimately could not speak. So we were just sitting there in silence. It took all of his concentration to stumble a few feet to the toilet, the half bath in my bedroom, way too close for comfort to use when anyone else was in the bedroom, where he promptly had the squirts and then passed out. I went to ask my roommate if she knew how to identify the symptoms of alcohol poisoning, and also to see if she knew a polite way to wake up someone who was asleep on the toilet. In the morning, I kept trying to usher him out of my apartment because, GTFO. He was so ridiculously hungover and healthy in general that he couldn't climb a gentle slope to the bus stop without doubling over to hack up a lung every few yards. 0 out of 10 would not date again. Story 22. I have an 11-year-old cousin, we'll call her Jane, who came to my house, along with my aunt and uncle, for 4th of July last year to celebrate with us. Around 11 p.m., my aunt and uncle got tired and decided to head to bed. Myself, Jane, my friends, and my mom stayed up a while longer and watched Jane play with what was left of the sparklers. Backstory: Jane was a little crap the whole day, screaming at her mom and my little sister, who's 14, tearing up our house, demanding we give in to her every want, whether it was the music being played or the food being cooked. She was just being awful, and no matter what my aunt or uncle or even my own parents did, she wouldn't calm the hell down. By 11 p.m., we were all tired of her, so we just let her play. A little later, about midnight, Jane goes into the kitchen, which leads directly to the backyard where we were shooting fireworks, and there's a bay window that looks out. But if the kitchen lights are on it while it's dark out the window, glare's so bad you can't see out. You can only see in. Well, Jane grabs some orange juice out of the fridge. No big deal. But then my little sister walks into the kitchen and Jane doesn't move until she leaves, which prompts my mom to watch her. After my little sister leaves, we watch Jane grab the vodka, it's July 4th, of course there's liquor, and fill half the cup with it and the other half with OJ. WTF. So my mom busts into the kitchen and after Jane denies she just poured herself a nightcap, my mother cop-locked her arms behind her and pushed her to the guest room and woke up her parents to let them know what happened. My uncle patted her down to find she also stole 3 cigarettes and a lighter from my dad. They left immediately the next morning. TLDR, a-hole 11-year-old cousin tried to sneak vodka on the 4th of July. Got caught with cigarettes also. Story 23. So, a few summers ago, one of my roommate's friends from his hometown came up to visit for a week to see the city. They live in southern Ontario. We live just outside Montreal. One of the guys I know pretty well. He'd visited before. The other guy I did not know at all. We'll call him Kurt from now on. So, one night they were out doing E. I wasn't with them because I had to work in the morning, and at something like 3 or 4 in the morning, I wake up to see Kurt walking around in my room. He then sits at the foot of my bed. I'm like, what are you doing? He mumbles something. Can't understand you, Kurt. I'm trying to sleep. Mumbles something again. Can you get out of my room, dude? I have to get up for work in a few hours. He gets up, mumbling, and leaves. This happens 2 more times, so I can't sleep anymore. This guy is freaking me out a little bit. So I get up and close my door. At around 6 a.m., I hear a knock. What? He walks in and says, you don't have to go to work soon? Don't effing worry about when I have to go to work. Get out of here, man. I left for work early that day. Barely slept. He apologized when I got home. He must have been really out of his mind that night, lol. The other friend was totally fine. Saw him sleeping on the couch as I was leaving. Yeah, that was a strange one. Story 24. So back in university, my friend invited this girl over, clearly with the intention of hooking up with her. We all had a few drinks and came decided to go out. Halfway through the night, the girl disappears, so I ask my mate if he'd seen her, and he says she met this guy and wanted to hook up with him. I've given her my key to the flat. Was a little weirded out that he was just giving our flat key out, but hey ho. An hour or so after, I got bored and decided to head back home. As I'm walking into the complex, these two guys were leaving, laughing between themselves. Thought nothing of it and went back to the flat. The girl was sat downstairs, acting really weird. She had also gone into my closet and dressed herself in my clothes. Again, thought it was a little weird, but was too drunk to care, so went to bed. Wakes up the next morning with my flatmate screaming at the top of his voice, "She has crap in my effing bed!" Get up to go and investigate, and lo and behold, there's literally crap marks all over his bed. She'd left at this point, so he rings her and asks WTF happened. She embarrassingly admitted that she was hooking up with this guy and his cousin in my flatmate's bed when one of them put it in the wrong hole. Long story short, crap went everywhere. These two guys noped the F out. Can't say I blame them, and left. She grabbed the nearest thing to her, a pair of her boxers, and madly tries to clean the mess she's made, whilst also going into my closet and dressing herself in my crap as her clothes were pretty ruined by all this. Well, that's pretty bad, I hear you saying. It gets worse. Later that day, my flatmate cooked and ate his dinner. Just wanted some chips as he was hungover. After he'd made his food, I went to put something in the oven and there was something in there. This effing girl had basically heard me come into the flat the night before and still had the crap-covered boxers she was trying to clean the crap with in her hand. In an effort to save face, she just shoved them in the nearest thing to her. Our oven! TLDR. Girl has three-way with guy and cousin in flatmate's bed. Craps all over the room, steals my clothes, and hides crap-covered boxers in our oven. Story 25. When I was 19, I begged my dad to have a Halloween party at his house. He regrettably agreed to it on the one condition that he could be there. Now, we made a Facebook group for this thing, and this being my first party I've thrown, I invited everybody. I even went as far as to invite my 20-something-year-old friend Zach, and told him he could bring his MMA buddies on the condition that they help me out by acting as security, which worked out. The cops did show, but they were able to round everyone up and make them go upstairs. A lot of us were underage. The police left and the party continued. Now, fast forward maybe 2 hours. These guys had devolved by that point. Come to find out, they were on Klonopin as well as the copious amounts of Dubra they brought. I know. Basically, by the end of the night, they'd lost one of their friends. One passed out in the bed of my father's truck, another on the front steps, and that left Zach, the one of them that I knew, and their leader, still going strong, lost in my pitch-black garage, tripping over something. I found out he was in there when I heard a loud bang. It was him knocking over my dad's Harley, which he had been rebuilding, so immediately I go to investigate and find this man. I get him inside, kinda half carrying him because he was gone. He finally snapped to it, and when it got to the point where he was begging my father to wrestle him, we decided it was time for Zach to go. So we brought him inside, sat him down next to his friend on the steps, and went to bed. They were all gone by the time we got up. Story 26. Here's a great story from the end nobody expected. I was the guest. In high school, I had a weird friend. I was pretty much his only friend, so we hung out a lot. Played Magic, video games, etc. His family invites me to go to Golden Corral. I say sure, why not? Free buffet, right? No downside. So we go, I get some barbecue. I believe it was pulled pork and a few sides. Tons of carbs and whatnot. I was thrilled. Coincidentally, this is also the story of why I will never eat at Golden Corral again. On the ride home, it begins. My stomach starts gurgling. I feel it. I know what's coming. Optimistically, I thought it would slowly build so I could handle it at the house. I was gravely mistaken. A series of traffic and red lights prolonged the car ride back to the house, and my situation only got worse. The gurgles turned to pain stress in my bowels. The gates to Kingdom Come were close to bursting. Only my position in the seat kept the portal closed. It took all of my willpower to hold it in. The parents must have known, because they asked if I was okay. I played it off and told them I just needed to use the bathroom. We arrive at the house after what feels like eons. I walk out, and the pressure is enormous. I'm essentially walking while trying to hold it in. I must have looked like a friggin' penguin. It was bad. Now, I want to note here that my clothing is super casual. I'm in boxers and gym shorts, very loose clothing. As the front door to the house is unlocked, I casually and quickly try to make my way to the bathroom. I'm eternally ashamed to say that I did not make it. I feel the leakage start. I abandon all hope of stopping the damage and focus on getting to the bathroom ASAP. I get in and close the door, and thank God I did, because the torrential mudslide coming from my nethers was already seeping down my leg into my socks. I sprint to the bathroom and throw off my shorts. They're beyond saving. I sit down and feel a little wet squish as I do. There goes the toilet seat. I unleash hell on the toilet. The deed itself took little time, but the damage was done. A neat little chocolate trail followed me from the bathroom door to the toilet. The seat itself was absolutely smeared. I myself was basically a giant poo sponge, paint from my ass to my thigh. I was mortified. I think I spent a solid hour and an entire roll of TP detailing the bathroom. I wiped the floor, the seat. I even went into the hinges of the toilet cover to make sure no trace of that meal remained in the bathroom. I promised myself I would take this story to the grave. I proceeded to go commando, and after washing what I could from my gym shorts and socks, I leave the bathroom, announce I'm not feeling well, and hightail it out of there. I trashed the boxers, and I didn't speak a word of this until about 5 years later, in college to my best friend. And now here I am telling the whole internet. TLDR, got invited to Golden Corral. Decided to create my own chocolate fountain in my friend's bathroom afterwards. Story 27. When I was about 7 years old, I had a friend visit for a sleepover on a school night. We were made to promise to go to sleep at bedtime so that we could get up and go to school in the morning. After the lights were out, she would say something about every 2 minutes or so to make sure I wouldn't fall asleep. Then, about half an hour after she heard my parents go to bed, she suddenly needed me to escort her to the bathroom, which was directly across the hall. When we got there, she locked the door, removed her clothes, and quoted her lack of clothes as a reason why the door needed to be locked, followed by opening the baby powder shaker lid as wide open as it would twist and puff the powder out in front of herself into the tiny room. When this didn't produce enough powder to coat her butt, she started smacking the still open lid against the countertop in an effort to break it open. In quick succession, I realized her nakedness was no longer the primary issue, let myself out, and brought back my mom. By the time I returned to the bathroom, the fuchsia bath rug appeared white in its coating of baby powder. The room was a winter wonderland of baby powder. To hell with the time of the night. This girl's parents were immediately called to come get their child out of our home. Mom closed up that bathroom for the rest of the night. My brother and I were restricted to using another bathroom until the mess had been cleaned up. Ultimately, my mother cleaned up the powder while we were in school the next day. I was not allowed to spend time with that girl anymore, and every soft item, rug, towel, washcloth, etc., which had been in that bathroom that night was never seen by me again. Story 28. Not a party, but regular house guests. There are two categories of them in this world. Those who are grateful to see you, and those who think you should be grateful for getting to see them. This brood counted themselves amongst the latter. They were my ex-girlfriend's family, consisting of one mother, one grandmother, one aunt, one uncle, and one demonic child who may have finally ended up murdering all those hookers like I imagined he probably would someday. They whirled into town because said ex-girlfriend had an event, and whenever she had an event, some massive selection of her clan would descend upon the city to offer all the moral support. They arrived while I was still at work. The girlfriend, she texted me and I cringed, knowing the results would probably be bad. And when I finally got home, holy crap were they. The living room was already destroyed. Completely destroyed. Furniture had been dragged away from the walls and repositioned to offer a better view of the television set. The coffee table was covered in detritus. Food wrappers, water bottles, wine glasses. The books I normally kept stacked there had been knocked over onto the floor, where they remained in a pile of chaotic mockery. Blankets had been pulled from every cranny and draped carelessly over whatever could hold them. The demon was sitting on one of the armrests of my easy chair, which was admittedly cheap and could not handle the strain, and had subsequently pulled the armrest from the rest of the body. Someone said hello to me, and I couldn't handle it. I smiled as politely as I could and retreated to my office for the remainder of the evening. No one noticed me go, and later on I could hear the yelling and panic from the other room as someone knocked over a bottle of red wine and spilled its contents across my living room floor. Then they loaded up a movie and proceeded to argue about whether or not it was appropriate for the demon. It was Bridget Jones's Diary. I spent the whole evening in that office, listening to them annihilate small pieces of my apartment through my mixture of hubris and strange entitlement, not leaving until I could be absolutely certain they were on their way out. When I finally emerged, the room looked as though it had been ransacked by a gang of drunken teenagers. Someone had ordered Chinese at some point, so now my kitchen was stacked full of filthy plates and leftovers. The trash can was overflowing, but no one had bothered to replace it. There were noodles on everything, the furniture, the tables, the sink, everything. The guests, upon witnessing this carnage, were content to simply leave. My ex's mother leaned in close, drunk, and whispered, "It looks like we made a mess. Sorry," before escorting the grandmother from the door. I was livid, but the ex wasn't prone to taking my side on these things. So I took photos of the whole thing and emailed them to my friends so I could at least share my contempt with friends. Story 29. A couple years ago, an aunt and her family from Norway came over for the summer. To be honest, one of the worst summers of my life. All 4 people, my aunt, her husband, and 2 kids, they were adults but in their 20s or so, would constantly be outside smoking, making each other smell like cigarettes and the house smelling like them too. One of the kids never showered for some reason, so it smelled like a rotting can of herring whenever you were around him. My mom had him shower once, but it didn't help at all. I think he was also a furry because he had a risque Renamon tattoo on his leg. But that part doesn't really matter. But the real issue I had with him has to do with the kind of crap my older sister had to deal with during that summer. At the time, my older sister and mom were going through a rough patch. She's fresh out of college at the time, 22 years old, and a very responsible person. But my mom was adamant of having her always come back from a night out before midnight. Back then, my mom was super strict about this, and whenever my older sister couldn't make it, crap would break loose and my mom would berate her for it. Now, with my aunt and her family around, my mom practically had a group of yes men to agree to whatever she was saying. My aunt was the worst offender of this. It came to the point that my older sister told me in secret that she would be running away for a while. I'm gonna be honest, I didn't blame her for it. Being the oldest, she had to deal with a bunch of bullcrap, especially during this summer. Being the male middle child and the so-called next man of the house, my mom for some reason treated me better in some aspects, even though I don't really deserve it. So the same afternoon, she packed her bags and left. My younger sister, who wasn't told by my older sister what she was doing, came to me crying, saying that my aunt had seen her with her bags leaving the house. The rest of the night, I had to play along and try to not let it slip that I knew. The worst part of this is that when my older sister ran away, my aunt was practically saying that my older sister was a piece of crap and a bad daughter anyways. Well, when my dad tried to defend her by, "How do you even know that?" my aunt just tells him, "Trust me, I know." Excuse me, you Norwegian piece of crap. My dad helped raise her. How the hell do you know what kind of person she is? Jump cut to a few weeks or so. To be honest, that time was pretty blurry. I don't remember how long she was gone, but it felt like a long time. My older sister is back. She and my mom sort of made amends, but I just couldn't look at my aunt in the same way. That summer ended on a very sour note, and I was glad when those effers hopped back on a plane. Hell, every time she and my mom have a video chat, I have to fake liking them. I normally just leave the room though. TLDR, I hate my aunt and her family for being a main cause of my older sister running away for a bit, and the fact that one of them smelled like rotten fish. At this point, I don't even know if I answered OP's question properly, but F it. I needed some way to vent today. Story 30. Once, when I was a teenager, my maternal grandparents came to visit. They lived some 700 miles away, so this was the pretty much only time they visited us. We visited them every summer and made frequent calls, wrote, etc. We were not estranged by any means. The week leading up to the visit, the entire family worked like crazy, cleaning, mowing, making repairs, and generally spiffing up. When they arrived, Grandpa wandered loudly where our garden was. They grew virtually all their produce, and Grandma wondered why we had curtains instead of blinds. Because why do we need a reason? That's why. The very next day, Grandma found a furniture store and dropped several grand replacing our comfortable, and not all worn out, living room furniture with the ugliest, rock-hard futons in existence. Oh, and blinds, including mounting hardware, and new curtains to go over them. And yes, they had the movers haul the old furniture away. While all this was being installed, Grandpa went down the road to a U-pick farm and brought back, I crap you not, 500 pounds of red grapes, so that we could make grape jelly. Literally none of us in that family liked grape jelly. We spent the rest of their visit canning grape jelly. My job was to hand crank the pressy thingy to squeeze the juice out, then scrape out the skins and seeds. The acid from those grapes made my hands swell, crack, and eventually bleed. Grandma also took it upon herself to buy all of us kids real haircuts at a salon and decent school outfits. Mine was a light lavender pantsuit, plus a pale turquoise ruffled blouse and matching rayon slacks. I was 14, by the way, and the entire rest of my closet was black. Never considered myself goth, just lazy. Black goes with everything. Also, this was in the 90s, not the 70s, and while we all got unasked for makeovers, Grandpa painted our kitchen, including painting over our cupboards, because the dark wood was gloomy and the wallpaper was loud. New color? Dead canary yellow. We loved our grandparents, and at no point during their trip was I aware of angry feelings or fighting, but I do remember just being baffled as to why they were redecorating our house. The day they left, Mom saw them off, then burst into tears. She pretty much cried for the rest of the day. We couldn't afford new furniture, and the store wouldn't take the futons back, and had already disposed of our perfectly good original furniture, so we were stuck with those ugly-ass things. The thing that made it possible to lay them down like a bed broke within a month on both of them, so Dad had to attach brackets to permanently lock them into sofa mode to even make them safe to sit on. We left them behind when we moved. We also left 100 jars of grape jelly. Wonderful people, but that visit stands out in my memory as the time Grandma and Grandpa did everything possible to make our entire family feel like crap. Story 31. Had a friend sleeping over who needed to change in the morning. Let her use my bathroom and went downstairs to make breakfast and wait for her. I checked the time. It's been about an hour, so I'm like, what the F? Is she okay? Go upstairs to check on her. Open the door to my room. She's sitting on the ground, surrounded by all my stuff. This girl emptied my closet, my drawers, my bookshelf, all the extra crap I stashed under my bed, everything. She's holding something in her hand, and to my horror, I realize it's my journal, where I've got all my private crap written down. Not just feelings and stuff, but accounts, names, and passwords that I'm prone to forget, things like that. She leaves. I figure it's all over and go clean up my room. Change every single password for every single account on anything, all that crap. I'm flipping through some of my other stuff too, just in case. Open up one of my sketchbooks and what do I see? The female dog scribbled all over it, ripped pages out, basically destroyed it on the inside. Mind you, this sketchbook was expensive. I'd saved all my allowance to buy it, and I was very, very, very careful with it. So to say I was angry would have been a massive understatement. I unfortunately still know this girl and have to see her on a regular basis because our families are friends. But whenever she's over, I'm 100% sure to keep an eye out and make sure she's not near any of my stuff. This girl's the reason I have trust issues. Story 32. My 20-year-old niece stays with me when she's home from college. She came in with her boyfriend at 10 a.m. one day when I was home from work. She came into the den and said, "Oh, hi, didn't know you were home." And I said, "Yeah, sick day." I was obviously awake. They go into the front living room to watch TV. About 10 minutes later, I got up to go out that way to get a phone charger, and I hear slurp, thap, thap, thap. I thought my dog was into something, so I'm like, WTF is that sound? I look to the right, and my niece is self-pleasuring her boyfriend on my couch in broad daylight in front of my open windows, sucking his face and yanking like her life depended on it. They were so into themselves, they didn't realize I was there. I shrieked so loud in absolute horror, it scared the F out of both of them. I yelled all manner of crazy, deranged things at them, like, "I don't need to see your boyfriend's chicken. What the F is wrong with you? You have a bedroom." I went outside to call my husband, who was no help. He just kept laughing hysterically. I came back inside, and my niece was sorting mail, not looking at me or anything else. Her boyfriend was staring at the wall like a toddler in a timeout. I left the house the rest of the day. The boyfriend is no longer allowed in my house without me or my husband present. Ew. Just ew. Story 33. I already posted, but I remember another one where I wasn't the a-hole. My husband at the time and I were living in military housing on base. We didn't have kids, so we didn't raid a large house. What we lived in was a 2-story townhouse. Downstairs was a small kitchen, no room for a dining table, a 1/2 bath, and the living room. Upstairs was just a loft with a bathroom. Suitable living situation for a young, childless couple. Anyway, one day a guy from my husband's unit asked if his pregnant 16-year-old girlfriend could stay on our couch for a week or two since her parents kicked her out upon finding out she was pregnant with a 23-year-old man's kid. My sister was a teen mom, and that tore her up, and my mom supported her the whole way. I can only imagine how a teen mom who was shunned by her family felt. After a quick discussion, then husband and I agree that for a few weeks our couch is her couch. Well, futon, really. The first night, the Marine buddy stays with her downstairs. No biggie. It was a weekend anyway, and he probably checked out of the barracks until Monday. The first few days were fine. We hung out together, talked, drank, except her, thank God, and generally had a chill weekend. Monday night comes around and he's sleeping there again. We're also out of food. To make her feel more comfortable, and since she was 3 months pregnant and experiencing that weird increase in appetite associated with pregnancy, we offered to take her shopping on our dime since the boyfriend was broke, hence why she needed our couch. Not only does that boyfriend invite himself, he starts filling our cart with some of the most disgusting name-brand crap ever, like Kraft mac and cheese, but with that nasty gelatinous Velveeta cheese sauce. We were a young couple that, after bills were paid, had maybe $500 to last us a month, and we had gotten damn good at making the food budget work, and that included eating off-brand comfort foods. When we checked out, our total was $325, and he threw the biggest effing hissy fit when we said some of his stuff had to go back. "Well, next month I'll pitch in half," he began to say. There were more words after that, but my brain got stuck on next month. I sat my husband down and we had a talk. Not only was the girlfriend the one that was supposed to be staying, she was only supposed to stay for 2 weeks at most, yet here's the boyfriend moving himself into our tiny apartment alongside her. She had zero interest in being social, even if I'd invite her to the PX, invite her to play video games or craft. I invited another spouse friend over in hopes of getting this girl to do something other than watch TV and eat. Even when the boyfriend was there, she wouldn't say much. Neither cleaned, so I had to do that, including paying for babysitting and their effing laundry at the laundromat. They hadn't offered to pay rent for a longer stay. They stayed up all night watching television at an ungodly volume. Then the girlfriend had the nerve to get mad at me for listening to my radio show on Medium. The boyfriend left cups and bottles lying around full of his chewing tobacco spit. Not even solo cups, one of my actual coffee mugs. I threw it out. The food we bought? Half gone a week later. When they finally left, we were broke as F with only a few chicken breasts and a UN-sized bag of rice. The boyfriend called my husband all kinds of awful names, and called me a heartless female dog, when we said that they both had to be gone by the end of the week, their third week there, or pay rent because we couldn't afford to take care of ourselves and them. When the bill time rolled around, our electric bill, usually about $50 to $60, was $320. I don't even know how, because that apartment didn't have AC. The water bill, that we usually paid every 3 months because it was so low that I guess they didn't see the point in billing us until it was over $100, came in for $250. They didn't offer to help out at all. Instead, called us terrible people to everyone in the unit / at the shop. The only time I ever opened my home like that again was to a friend who was EASing from the military and was moving to Missouri as soon as he did. Really enjoyed cooking. Had OCD. He was there for 1 month. Kept my place spotless and gave us money for half the bills. Story 37. When I was in 6th grade, my mom's friend had a kid in the same grade as me at the same school. Kid was a complete dip crap and I hated him, but of course my a-hole mother insisted I try to be friends with him. One night, she insisted he sleep over at our house while I had some of my actual friends sleeping over. When we all wake up in the morning, my bedroom smells like a rest stop bathroom. My friends all freaked out and called their parents to come pick them up, as did my mom's friend's kid. The kids are all gone, and we're trying to determine the source of the funk. That's when I discover the sleeping bag my mom's friend's kid slept in, the inside of which is smeared with crap and piss, which he had tried to hide by stuffing it into one of my dresser drawers. Every single one of my t-shirts had to be thrown away, except the one I was wearing during the incident. Story 35. When I was 18 or 19, my uncle came to stay for a week. He was a huge guy, about 6'7", maybe 260 pounds of just slab muscle. He was an ex-biker. At the time, I was working 2 jobs, a supermarket in the morning from 7 to 3:30, and a video store from 4 p.m. to 11 p.m., sometimes midnight. So I get home from the video store, and my uncle and stepfather had gotten drunk and wrecked the bar in the house, completely destroyed it. My mother was also blitzed out of her mind. The younger brother was watching my little sister and cousin, uncle's daughter, in his room, and they were upset because of the rowdiness of the adults. So I'm home for all of 5 minutes when my Sasquatch of an uncle came running past me and outside. My mom is determined to go look for him, and as I said, she was pretty hammered, so I went looking for him. It took 2 hours, but I finally found him about 2 miles away smoking a cigarette on a fallen tree. It took another hour to get him home. When I got him home, he got into another argument with my stepfather, and they both left. When I finally got both of them home, it was 9 a.m. I had to call out of work to deal with this crap. I then had to go to sleep so I could go to my second job. Story 36. My parents banned the son of a neighbor from the house after he was caught laughing hysterically leaving the bathroom. He'd smeared the toilet seat with his poop, and my parents had to clean it up. Since then, I've encountered a cousin who left a toilet seat of a different house covered with poop, and the only explanation we could come up with was he must have really had to go and started before he'd sat down. Then, at a place I've worked, the back rim of a toilet seat was covered in poo once. I'd be more interested to know the real how of these scenarios, but I've never been interested enough to do some active investigating. I didn't know which coworker did it, and it was a place I worked at previously, not a customer-facing place, so it had to be a coworker. Otherwise, it's a cousin I know, but it seems awkward to just ask, "Yo, why did you crap on this whole toilet when I was 11? Or the first story, where I don't remember the guy's name, but we weren't friends, so it's almost the same problem as the cousin. I'm interested now, but it feels like it's beyond statute of limitations of interest unless I want to be the creepy guy. And I'm not sure that I don't want to be, but I'm not really sure how to go about it in a way that isn't creepy, which would be ideal. Q Ask Reddit question. People who smear a toilet seat with their own poo, why do you do it? This is something that happens quite frequently. I've worked jobs before where adults, we're not talking children, adults will go into the bathroom and they'll come out and there will just be fecal matter smeared all over the place. And I just, for the life of me, I don't understand why people do this. So yeah, if you are someone that used to do it or you know someone that does it and can give an explanation, go ahead and drop it in the comments because yeah, that's just way over the top. Story 37. So I'm far too late for this, but I've realized I'm still angry about this. This is long, so the TLDR is that my dog was abused by a guy living rent-free while he got back on his feet. There is a guy that a friend asked me to help out, meaning this lazy POS lounged on my couch drunk, hopped up on pills, eating everything, not paying for anything, not showing up to work because he was, quote, too ADHD, and he couldn't even clean up after himself or take out beer bottles that littered his area. I worked and went to school, and I swear every time I came home, he was asleep or playing PlayStation. Here's the thing. I had a very sweet dog that was kennel trained, so I never hit her, but if she got in trouble, very rare, but she was a pit bull puppy, she would go wait in the kennel until I picked up whatever she chewed. She was free to roam the house, though, while I was gone, and the kennel was strictly punishment, which only ever lasted 2 minutes. She was very well potty trained and had accidents only while training. This asswipe was locking her up and hitting her when she made noise. Never barked or whined, just unclipped tail hitting the kennel. I didn't know this the first few times, but one day I got stuck at work and asked him to feed her and to let her out as I wouldn't be home in between work and school. At this point, she's apparently been locked up for 6 hours, and he just gives her 2 hot dogs through the bars of the kennel instead of letting her out and feeding her dog food. Of course, that didn't sit well since she never had it before. So, his words, she started crying, and I told her to be quiet, and 10 minutes later she crapped everywhere, so I put her outside. I still have another 6-ish hours away while this is happening, but I come home and the entire kennel is out on my balcony covered in diarrhea, as is my formerly white dog. She's crouched in the corner as far from the messiest spot as possible, crying. First time I ever heard her make a noise. His reasoning as to leaving her like that? I didn't want to touch poop. Why didn't you let her out? She's potty trained. Not my dog. Why couldn't you at least let her roam on the balcony? That's where I smoke. So I let her out to go potty, cleaned her paws so she could go inside for a bath, and I see her duck around him with her tail tucked. I asked what he did all day. He slept and gave her 2 hot dogs. I asked if he hit her, and I find out as soon as I left the house. He sends her to the kennel, which she goes to on command and then stays even if you don't shut it. But she, quote, didn't listen. Read, didn't go fast enough. So he spanked her, and when she ran from him, he hit her a few more times and threw her in the kennel for 12 hours. She, quote, kept moving around and keeping him up, so he spanked her for that. But that's it. It wasn't that much. I freaked out, but I tried to keep a level head and went to wash the dog. Remember how I said she had white hair? Well, it's pretty translucent when wet, and this poor thing had bruises on her bottom and her face, and scratches from being thrown into the kennel. She wasn't spanked, she was beaten, left in her own feces on a cold balcony, still holding 12 hours worth of pee, starving and crying. I almost stabbed this dude. I should have, but I just made him leave, and I called his friend to move his stuff out. I'm still mad. Yeah, so this dude needs to have done to him exactly how he treated the dog. What the hell is wrong with you? Get out. Story 38. When I was in college, I lived in an apartment with my friend and my 2 cats. My friend invited 2 of her classmates over to work on a group project, a guy and a girl. The girl was cool, but the guy seemed a little weird, but he seemed nice enough. I was in the kitchen while they worked in the living room, and at one point, my friend went into the bathroom, leaving the guy and girl alone. After a minute or so, the girl comes into the kitchen carrying one of my cats. The cat was my baby, and she practically jumped in my arms and seemed scared. The girl looked freaked out also, and she whispered to me that as soon as my friend left the room, the guy started petting my cat and all of a sudden started choking her. The girl pulled my cat away right away and brought her to me. But you do not mess with my baby. She's the sweetest cat and loves people and being pet, so I know she did nothing to deserve it. I kicked that guy out so fast and threatened to call the police, and may or may not have threatened to cut off his balls also. My roommate was so confused when she came out of the bathroom. Story 39. My buddy was on leave from the Marines and we went out drinking. After we got back, I went to bed and he went to take a shower. He made a lot of racket and was clearly struggling. My wife kept telling me to go check on him and the bathroom, which I resisted, but eventually gave in. I had to go through his bedroom to get to the bathroom. When I went in, he was on the bed on his back, spread eagle naked. I tried to make my way into the bathroom, but the door was jammed and I had to force my way in. Somehow he'd gotten a disposable razor behind the door after he closed it. The shower curtain and rod had been pulled down and were laying in a bathtub full of brown water, covered in vomit, as was the bath mat on the floor. I tried to drain the tub and reached in to pull the plug and quickly realized that the plug was on the side of the tub. The drain was just clogged. I grabbed at the debris to clear the drain and came up with a vomit-covered turd. It took 2 more handfuls to clear the drain. That was that. The bath mat, shower curtain, shower liner all went straight into the trash. While I was passing back and forth to clean up the mess, I kept throwing a blanket over my buddy so I wouldn't have to look at his balls, and every time I passed through, he had pulled it off. The next morning, he remembered none of this. He still swears I'm exaggerating. Story 40. A really good friend of my husband and I came to visit with his wife and their 2 kiddos during Christmas vacation. The oldest was of potty training age and told his parents he needed to potty. Can't remember who ended up taking him after arguing about it, but he was left alone, 2-year-old, in the bathroom by one of them. The arguing continued with who should check on and help the poor kid out, but the dad did. He came back with a look on his face and told her to clean up the bathroom. I couldn't understand what he could mean by that. Either way, she went down the hall and came back complaining to him that it was his fault, the dad's. Flash forward an hour and they leave and I decided to see the bathroom myself. I couldn't believe my effing eyes. There was crap everywhere and on everything. The toilet, the floor, bathroom, rug, shower curtain, sink, counter, wall, door, and doorknob. They kicked the rug to the corner and did not attempt to clean up after their kid. Who the F does that? So sad to see such a good friend be such a lazy parent. Story 41. My friend's girlfriend at the time. They'd been going out for maybe a month at the time when he thought it would be a good idea for us to have a game night. Just me and him and our girlfriends. Everything seemed to go smoothly at first over dinner. The problem was when I pulled out the Monopoly game board. To this day, I'm not sure why I thought Monopoly would be a good idea. Well, after my buddy's girlfriend finished the first bottle of wine, on her own, things got a little uncomfortable. Every time she landed on someone else's property, she'd make a comment about how once again owing money to the Jews. Why would a Jew own a railroad? Why are they even allowed on them? Don't they have their own special Jew-only cars? Anyway, this went on for a while, in between her slandering of everyone, from the Czechs to the Mongolians. I don't even know what her gripe was with them. Eventually, it became so uncomfortable my girlfriend went home early and my buddy, who was drinking non-stop from the embarrassment I assume, passed out on the couch. So it was just me and this super anti-Semitic 5'1" Aryan girl finishing up one of the most painful games of Monopoly imaginable. Well, long story short, we ended up having sex on the dining room table while she was screaming God knows what in German. 5 years later, we're still together and married, and I couldn't be happier. Story 42. It wasn't my house, but during a friend's birthday party at his home, this guy got so effing crap-faced that he started to strip down to just his underwear and cry. Mind you, after a few minutes of crying and whining about the dumbest things, he started to pee. My friend and his sister had to hold him in place, and his mother had to hold an empty milk jug in front of his wiener to catch all that pee. Woke up the next morning not remembering anything, and he didn't even believe the piss story until my friend's mom brought out the jug. She was still pretty nice about the whole thing. And yeah, the dude is actually me. It's embarrassing, and my friends will never let me live this crap down. I probably deserve worse for it, though. Story 43. New Year's Eve party. Friend brought a friend. That person drank too much, vomited all over my living room. I figured that wasn't so bad. I cleaned it all up right away since wooden floors. Sort of easy to clean up? Sure. I also thought he had expelled all the evil out of him, since he was acting semi-normal. Therefore, I told him to go to the bathroom to take a shower, and I got him some sweats. After some time, I heard these weird noises coming from the bathroom, like tingling. I knocked and asked how he was, and was met with a weird Shakespearean response, and to my guess and mine amusement, he would only respond to Shakespearean bullcrap. When I got the door open, I found that the noise we heard were tiles falling to the bottom of the tub. He then proceeded to rip the tiles off the wall quick enough. I tried to calm him down, but he then proceeded to throw punches at me with the tiles in his hand. He was drunkenly flailing about, throwing these weird punches I couldn't deflect, and he knocked me in my mouth and chipped my tooth. At that point, I finally had enough and set aside my calm demeanor and put him in a chokehold. Got him dried up and dressed and put him in the guest bed. Woke up the next morning and I made everyone breakfast. He apologized. $500 tooth repair, $1,200 tile work. I never heard from him again and I'm okay with that. TLDR. Friend of a friend at a New Year's Eve party. Spews forth evil vicious all over my wooden floor. Proceeds to only communicate in Shakespearean. Gets angry in shower and rips tiles off wall. Throws punches a la Drunken master style and chips one of my teeth. Story 44. My mom's friend who lives about an hour and 30-minute drive from us. She lives pretty much out of nowhere with her husband and sometimes visits us when they're getting groceries from our area. First, she doesn't call beforehand that she's visiting. Pretty much showed up and stayed for 3 to 4 hours to chat. My mom is one of those people that needs to take a nap in the afternoon, or otherwise she'll be in a bad mood at night, and her friend always visits in the afternoon. Secondly, when she visits, she will ask uncomfortable questions such as, what job are you working now? When are you getting a boyfriend? How much does your job pay? I can't hang out in the living room and have to lock myself in the room to avoid this person when she visits. Third, her husband is old and they always ask to use the bathroom. However, her husband always drips on the floor and doesn't put the seat down after he's finished, and of course doesn't clean up his mess. My mom has terrible friends, but this one is the worst. Story 45. We all have stories of times, especially at house parties, that we found people pissing, yakking, effing, or crapping somewhere that they shouldn't have been. I'm here to tell a different story. We have a family friend who comes over once in a while. He's always been a super nice guy, so no one has any reason to be suspicious of him. Somewhere along the way, he was over at our house and he got up to use the bathroom. 20 minutes later, he still wasn't back. I got up to make sure everything was okay and noticed my door was shut. I walked up to the door, tried to open it, but it was locked. Faster than I could blink, he rushed to the door and opened it, saying, "Sorry, I didn't know it was locked." He claimed he was making a phone call and needed some privacy, but still, no one really thought much of it until the next time he came over and didn't return from the bathroom again. The door to my room was shut and locked again. The scenario played out exactly as it had the first time. This is the most effed up thing a guest has ever done in my house because I have no idea what the F he did while he was in my room. I might be blowing it out of proportion, but I'm damn sure he wasn't on the phone. Story 46. I let my 23-year-old rent a room from me. It was annoying, but for 6 months, I said nothing. Then my 22-year-old nephew from a different sibling shows up and asks if he can rent my other room since I was letting my 23-year-old nephew stay with me. I told him sure and gave him the same deal I gave the other one. I was able to tolerate them for 3 more months before I finally up and told them to get out. A week after they vacated the rooms, I went in to clean them and replace the bedding. The 23-year-old somehow managed to burn a hole in my king-size mattress 6 inches deep and 2 foot across without me ever knowing. The 22-year-old had a habit of smoking and chewing, 2 habits I despise. Our agreement was that he'd never chew or smoke in the house. I found 7 Mountain Dew bottles under his bed with the lid still on while I was cleaning, and each one of them was full of his spit. In addition to that, he'd chew on the walls. I don't mean 2 or 3 times. I mean 40 or 50 times. It was so freaking disgusting. Story 47. We had a Halloween party at our old house. One guy showed up pissed drunk with his wife who seemed sober. He spent the first part of the night generally being a dick and trying to start crap between people for no reason. Then he started fighting with his wife. Like one-sided, him screaming at her for no reason really. She decided she wanted to take a nap on the couch so that way when the party was over, she could drive home. Near the end of the night, he goes to wake her up, but could barely stand up. He stumbles, nearly pulls down the bookshelf, which I jumped to catch. But then he stumbles towards the TV and to save himself, put his hand through a painting. The painting was something I had just bought. I had to save up a bit for it since it was an original from an artist with a gallery in our old town, but I loved that painting. Instead of apologizing, the guy begins to say how ugly the painting is and that he did me a favor. My SO tells him to get out, and he starts arguing with him about it being a worthless painting. That's when I got upset and left the room. But unfortunately, I could hear him in the other room while people were trying to get him to leave, ask if I was the one that painted it, and in that case, I should try something else with my time, like cooking. I didn't hear much else after that, but people told me they've never seen my SO as terrifying as when he forced him out of the house. Story 48. Had a crazy house party in my early 20s. A girl ended up sleeping with my friend's girlfriend. Then she tried to justify it as if they were in love. They met that night, and passionately argued with me as I yelled at her to get the F out until I threw a large trash can at her, shattering her window, and physically pushed her out. She continued to try and push back in the door as I slammed it on her. Then she began texting me asking for the friend's girlfriend's number. She never got it from her while they were humping apparently. I hosted the party and thus felt responsible. My mind was so full of WTF and she just wouldn't leave. My friend broke up with his girlfriend almost immediately, and she then had nowhere to live as they were renting a room from me together. I had to evict him later as he stopped paying bills and couldn't get himself to do anything. Edit. Syntax. So, TLDR, this girl came into my home and screwed my friend's girlfriend. Said that they were in love instead of apologizing and leaving. Refused to leave until being hit with a trash can and physically shoved out of the house, then continued asking for her contact info. Got the girl she slept with evicted, and eventually the BF as well. Story 49. Maybe 10 years ago, my twin brother and I had a birthday party at a pizza pub. We had about a dozen friends there, and one friend stumbled in drunker than I've ever seen. He was hitting on the girls, slurring statements of adoration towards the guys, and making a scene. Since none of my friends knew what to do, I left my own party early and took him back to my apartment. I was honestly afraid he wouldn't get home or he'd unalive himself doing something dumb. In my home, he puked in my sink and broke my garbage disposal by running it after knocking a shot glass down the hole. Then he cleared his mouth by spitting in some glass candle holders on my table before passing out on my bed, and leaving a puddle of puke-stained drool on my pillowcase and sheets. My now wife, then girlfriend, was a missionary living in Papua New Guinea. For gifts, Christmas, birthday, etc., she couldn't just shop at the local store. This was before Amazon and online retailers had really taken off, so she bought tribal masks, weapons, and other Papua New Guinea art and sent it to me. My room at my apartment was decorated in it. When the drunk friend woke up, he looked all around my room and got wide-eyed. He belligerently yelled, "Am I in Dumbledore's castle?" Yes, I know it's Dumbledore. Story 50. One of my friend's brother's friend was over at his house and pissed all over the basement floor on purpose. He was a fat, annoying F that basically was a nuisance to the entire school until he moved. Because he was so popular, he had a following that would be as douchey as he was. I got the worst bullying at that time he was around, to the point that I planned a date and way to unalive myself. My friend foiled it though because he told the guidance counselor who called my mom. I thought I was going to be in trouble, so I was crying my eyes out. My mom picked up at work, crying, and got home before me to throw out the rubbing alcohol. My plan was to hold a rag of gasoline over my nose to numb the pain, then chug rubbing alcohol. Thank God for them, but I'm still deeply depressed and contemplate painless ways to end my suffering on the face of this earth. All of the people that bullied me then have turned around and been way nicer to me, except for my friend's brother, the one mentioned way earlier. I wore a white shirt once, and he called me a marshmallow because I'm fat and white. He won't talk to me because I'm weird, and will get into conversations with my friends and tell them not to talk to me, which some of them go along with. I wish I could find friends that wouldn't go along with it, but this kid is well liked. I don't even know why he picks on me still. I just want to be friends. Sorry, I'm rambling. This will probably just get buried, as most of my other comments do. but it feels good to write all of this, even if nobody hears my plea. What is my plea, you ask? My plea is that you younger people of Reddit don't single someone out. We're all on this earth struggling at some point, and you don't know how it affects people. So just out of respect for this poster, I just want to highlight it and draw attention to what he posted there at the end about, pleading, crying out for help, and not bullying, and, basically everything that kind of almost pushed him to the brink. So just taking a couple seconds here to highlight that, read it back, listen to it again, but yeah, you're definitely heard, my friend. Story 51. My mom and stepdad threw a Christmas party one year and invited their coworkers. They had the usual party food and drinks, but my stepdad also made PJ. For those of you who do not know what PJ is, it's an alcoholic drink made with lots and lots of Everclear, vodka, fruit juice, and really bad decisions. At some point in the evening, two of my mom's female coworkers and a male friend of my stepdad's disappeared. They were found when a very shocked guest walked in on them having a three-way in our bathroom. They hadn't even bothered to lock the door. One of the girls was there with her husband, but the guy that she and the other girl were screwing in our bathroom was not her husband. There was a lot of yelling and threatening going on. There was almost a fist fight in our front yard, but my stepdad broke it up. He was a police officer, so it's not like they were going to try and fight him. At the end of the night, we ended up having to drive a bunch of people home. Some of them were so trashed that when he got home, he joked that he didn't know if he had taken them to the right house because he couldn't get any clear directions from them. I was pissed because I was the one that had to Clorox the bathroom the next day. Story 52. This was a couple years ago, back when I was at university. I was living in a house off campus with two other roommates. Both dudes were good friends of mine at the time, but my one roommate loved to invite his friends over that my other roommate and I didn't like. Fast forward a few hours into the night, and we have like 20 people in our house drinking and hanging out. I'm in my room where we would smoke bud with about 6 others. We hear crazy screams out in the living room. I run out to see what's going on. My roommate is rolling on the carpet, completely engulfed in flames from the waist up. His douchebags of friends came over, spit Everclear all over our kitchen countertop island where we would play beer pong, proceeded to flick a lighter, and the flames jumped across the counter where my roommate was leaning on. He got third-degree burns, gnarled skin grafts, and had to be care-delighted 3 hours away to a burned victim unit. Story 53. I haven't had anything super effed happen to me, and the only time I did anything dumb was when I went out clubbing with a few friends in my 20s and got way too drunk. More a goofy drunk, but was dancing and making people laugh. We ended up back at another person's apartment, and I was hitting it off pretty well with a cute girl who tagged along. We were both still drunk and just giggling and talking, and she ended up passing out, laying face up across my lap. Not a big deal, right? Well, until I had to piss and rip ass and couldn't hold the gas anymore. I tried as gently and smoothly as a drunk guy could to shuffle out from under her without waking her up, and during the process, I dropped a thunderclap from my ass that legit shook the couch. She woke up and moved to the other end of the couch. I apologized awkwardly, used the bathroom, and headed home with my roommate. Made me think of that Wayne's World quote about Garth feeling sick whenever he saw his crush. Only about farts. If you float a biscuit and she fires back, she's yours. But if you fart and she bolts, then it was never meant to be. Story 54. Stole my wife's engagement ring. My wife rarely wore it for fear of losing it or banging it on something and knocking the stone loose, to the point where it took years for her to realize it was gone. But the only people who had been in my apartment alone in that span, who didn't actually live there, were my dad, my brother, and our babysitter. Pretty sure it wasn't Dad. Might have been the babysitter, but that seems like an incredibly risky thing to do, and she didn't seem like the type. But my brother had some serious drug problems. By the time we realized the ring was gone, he had gone through rehab, and is still clean to this day. But at the time, he stole plenty of stuff from my parents, so I wouldn't have put it past him. But I've never said a word to anyone about it, apart from my wife, obviously. I'm just happy enough that he's clean and that dark period of his life is behind him, and it's not worth adding that tension to our relationship. It's not like he's going to pull it out of his pocket and give it back. Story 55. Ooh, I finally have a juicy story for Ask Reddit. Okay, so my mom's former friend, for some reason we called her Auntie even though she had no relation to us, came over all the way from London. We were told to be on our best behavior while she was there, and we were. My whole family had to go out, but Auntie wasn't feeling well, so she stayed home. She could look after me that way, so it all worked out. I'm the youngest child and was about 2 to 3 at the time. This isn't anything to do with her abusing me. While I was asleep, I'm told she goes through all of our rooms, trashing them, then takes pictures and takes them to some child protection place, saying me and my siblings are being mistreated at home. So a week later, the police arrive and we have to try and piece together an explanation. Much talking and paperwork later, we realize what a female dog that woman was. Just FYI, Auntie couldn't have children and had mental problems, so we think she was just jealous of our family and wanted to tear it apart. Story 56. Cousin, while a guest at my house, told my mother that he will not eat her crap, and he cried that the cereal he brought from the USA to our country ran out. Other cousin puked in my new jacket sleeve while staying at my house. Didn't clean up or acknowledge the next day. He was wasted, and I suppose the jacket sleeve was preferable to my bed, where he was found passed out. Same cousin tried killing my next-door neighbor / distant relative when he had refused the same cousin more booze and ears to listen to his stories. Basically got kicked out of his crib while staying at my folks' place, went to my folks' spot, grabbed the biggest knife, and went back to my next-door relative. Before my next-door relative was able to answer the door, he heard someone falling down the stairs. He opens the door. The same cousin, face down, legs up on the stairs, passed out from falling. Next-door relative goes down to help, and the same cousin ejects concealed knife from his sleeve and proceeds to get his ass whooped. Because my next-door neighbor is a vet, with both military and street hand-to-hand combat experience. Next day, same cousin had to leave and go back to his country. Other cousin, I have a few, peed on my sister's Mac laptop, which was sitting opened on a chair, next to the bed in which my cousin was sleeping. Wasted, yes. Wasted enough to justify the midnight pissing on an open laptop? Nope. Same cousin as before. Came to visit my house, peed onto my bed while my wife and I were sleeping in it. I was awakened by my wife flipping out. 3 regular drinks, 1 shot plus 2 beers, is what caused that. Sorry to be putting your actions on blast, but if you never did it, then you wouldn't have to worry about being told. Story 57. We had a party one night and a good friend of ours ended up going upstairs with a guy. At the time, we had one of those giant beanbags. When I say giant, I mean this thing was like 200 pounds. Anyway, our friend ended up getting sexual with this guy, and the next day we found that they had ditched the used condom under our beanbag. A year or so later, while we were pet sitting for this same friend, her cat repeatedly peed on the beanbag. We ended up having to throw it out because of the irreversible smell. What was even more amazing was the fact that after we dragged it out to the road, it rained. By the time the garbage man came the next day, this thing had to have weighed at least double its original weight. Yet, by some miracle, the trash guys managed to load it up and take it away. Story 58. When I was young, maybe 5, I had a neighbor friend stay over one night. We were pretty poor, but the friend wasn't really much better off. Same neighborhood / public housing, I think. So my mom had made goulash for supper. I seriously loved goulash, and it was a bit of a treat. Kind of pricey with the meat and various ingredients. No way. Neighbor kid was not having it. She demanded we take her out for real food, Taco Bell. To make matters worse, her mother had just left town knowing she was taken care of for the night, and had given her some money just in case, which she shoved at my mom, shouting something like, "I have my own money if you're too poor." I was mortified. My mom probably cried, but she didn't cry in front of us. She told my friend if she was really hungry, she'd eat what she was served, which is exactly what I would have been told. It ruined supper for everyone, and the rest of the night was awkward. Story 59. Little late, but here goes. I used to live in a party house, so we had a lot of people over one night, and everyone was drunk. My parents lived nearby and needed me to watch their house for a few days, so around 2 a.m. I went to their house and went to sleep. I woke up in the morning to a phone call that went like this. "Hey man, how's it going?" "Well, sleepy. It's 8 a.m. "Yeah, cool. That's cool. I'm having a pretty okay day too. I woke up and I was thirsty, so I got some water, and then I needed to pee, and I went to pee, and someone shat on your floor." "Wait, like some poo got on the floor?" "Well, no. It seems they puked, clogged the toilet, overflowed it, and then decided they still needed to poop, so they pooped one down right in front of the toilet. Like, impressive since it's under the lip. They really had to bend back. And then they appear to have stepped in half of it and smeared it all over, but half the poop still looks pristine. Well, when I got home, we called who we believed to be the culprit. They didn't remember, but they came and cleaned it all up. I think it was the guy who called me, but I'll likely never know for sure. Story 60. My wife had a friend from high school up to visit last year, and she ended up staying on the same weekend my friends and I did our live fantasy football draft. Wives and girlfriends all showed up, so it turned into a big party. Wife's friend got really drunk on Dragonberry rum, whatever the hell that is, and passed out in the guest room. I stayed to clean up a bit, and around 2 a.m., I heard some weird shuffling noises coming from the guest room, followed by a weird smell. I went to bed with an idea of what happened. Next morning, she said goodbye pretty abruptly and took off, so I headed into our guest room to see what was up. She'd gotten out of bed at 2, tried to head towards the bathroom, but ended up crapping all over the floor. Now, this girl had a gastric bypass, so her crap was some kind of ungodly pale brown liquid from hell itself, all over my carpet. Even worse, she'd tried to clean it up in the most half-assed, pun effing intended, way possible. She found the cleaning supplies under our sink, but instead of using the carpet cleaner like a normal human being, she took the Clorox wipes, rubbed the poo lake a bit, threw the crappy wipes in the trash can, and left. It took me a full day and a carpet extractor rental to get the carpet de-pooped, and it took a month for it to smell normal again. This was almost a year ago, and that girl hasn't talked to my wife since. Story 61. I present to you, in its internet debut, The Legend of the Crapping Ghost. My junior year of college, I lived in a university-owned townhouse with 5 other girls. We had 1.5 bathrooms, half bath downstairs, full bath upstairs. In the upstairs bathroom, we had a small communal bin for hand-washing clothes. One Friday night, a roommate who was a fellow dance major, let's call her Sam, soaked her toe pads because they needed it. I was one of the first people up the following morning. There were optional ballet classes to take and professors to suck up to get valuable insights from. In the process of getting ready, I noticed 2 things. 1, the water in the hand wash bin was really murky. Like opaque murky. I thought nothing of it, other than, damn, I guess Sam's toe pads did need washing. 2, annoyingly, someone had left her coat spread out across our entire couch. One roommate, Ellen, had gone to a party the previous night, so I figured she'd gotten smashed and just left her crap wherever. I was surprised because Ellen was generally a courteous person who could handle her alcohol, but there wasn't time to worry about it. When I got back from class around noon, Ellen was just about to hop on a bus to a city a couple of hours away to spend a day with friends. She seemed alert and not at all like she could have downed enough alcohol to leave her effing coat on the couch. Sam and another roommate, Sydney, were downstairs talking to her, and when I came in, they turned their attention to me to ask if I knew what was up with the dirty wash bin. I thought that was just your toe pad water. That's what I thought too, Sydney chimed in. Ew, my toe pads weren't that disgusting. Anyway, I woke up Lauren, another roommate who did not appreciate being awakened, to ask her if she knew what it was, but she didn't either. Ellen left and Sam and Sydney worked up the courage to investigate the mysterious contents of the bin. Apparently, there were chunks. It looked like someone had tried to rinse out the bin after her mistake, but only got as far as filling it with water. When Sam and Sydney carried the full toxic sludge bin to the toilet with the steadiness and overwhelming solemnity of pallbearers, they admitted to smelling a crap-like odor. Paschetti, did you have to get up to use the bathroom last night? No. Oh, 'cause it looks like someone shat in the hand wash bin. Well, I guess it was Ellen. She went to that party last night, right? And she didn't get back till after we'd all gone to bed. And she left her coat here all over the effing couch, which is weird 'cause she just left and didn't take her coat with her. Only then did we inspect the coat more closely. Looking through the pockets, we found 1, an iPhone that displayed a Facebook friend request from Ellen and then promptly died. 2, a wallet bearing a driver's license with a name we didn't recognize. And 3, a pack of Newports. Some Facebook research revealed that the girl went to a nearby college. I decided to message Ellen to update her on the situation. Hey, do you remember bringing a friend home last night? Some girl's coat is on the couch. Oh, a friend walked me home. I'll get the stuff to her next time I see her. Did you guys ever figure out what was up at the wash bin? Yeah, someone shat in it. That's a joke, right? Nope, we've got it narrowed down to 2 people who would have been awake when it happened. My friend was drunk last night, but she only used the bathroom downstairs. I waited in the kitchen, literally right next to the downstairs bathroom, so she would have known if the girl wandered elsewhere, and then saw her out. I don't think she went upstairs at all, but I suppose it's a possibility. So to recap, it was not Lauren, Sydney, Sam, our 6th roommate, or me, because we were all asleep. It was not Ellen, because she was too lucid to have done it. It maybe could not have been our guest, because Ellen kept tabs on her the whole time she was using the bathroom. It appears that, as always, truth was stranger than fiction. We have no idea how our guest got home, especially without a coat. This was December in the snow belt, for F's sake. No man shall ever know the true sequence of events that night, and the mystery remains, maybe partially, unsolved. Story 62. Well, there was this bowl of egg-based pudding that my roommate, future husband, left in the fridge for long enough that he didn't want to bake/complete it. He put it on the counter and it sat for 2 days. Raw eggs outside of their shell. Then a guest decided to eat a big spoonful of it for some reason, which didn't include knowing what it was, except smelling like chocolate. The guest then occupied the disused bathroom for the rest of the night. We had 2 bathrooms, and somehow one was usually used just by the cat. If I recall correctly, the tub/shower couldn't be used because it leaked into the wet wall, but that might have gotten a cock job before the incident. I don't remember a horrifying mess. Either he cleaned up after himself or his girlfriend helped. The guest in question was already underage drunk when he decided to eat our Salmonella surprise, which was probably fortunate. Story 63. A couple of my little sister's friends, around ages 6 to 7, slept over for the night. Before they went to bed, they, all except for my sister, wanted to have makeovers in the bathroom right next to my room. I could hear them giggling the entire time, and I didn't bother checking on them. I wake up and go to the bathroom to see the entire bathroom covered in lipstick and some kind of powder that my sister gets monthly, which is supposedly costly. Her friends also thought it would be fun to use pieces of my deodorant to mix with the powders, my toothpaste with lipstick, and break a couple of my toothbrushes for whatever reason. They also ate candy while they were doing this and threw out hard candies that had already been in their mouths and stuck it in obscure places, i.e. under the counter, in the medicine cabinet, under a trash can. Now my bathroom looks like a unicorn had a really bad case of diarrhea and smells like it threw up too. Thankfully, I haven't seen any of them since. Story 64. I recently had roofers. One of the younger guys managed to cut his hand pretty badly. Rather than tell anyone, he proceeded to cake a brand new hand towel in blood and place it back on the towel rack. He was kind enough to leave blood streaks over door handles and part of the walls. That was pretty disgusting, as I found out by accident. The other WTF scenario I had was when my mate broke my toilet seat. He's a big unit. Rather than quietly tell me, he ignored it and left. I also discovered that by total accident, which pissed me off. A toilet seat is easy to replace, but not on a late Sunday afternoon, before a bank holiday. I never called him out on it, but I do take the piss at every opportunity as a quiet reminder. Story 65. I was hosting a Make It Better party. The only rule of the party was each guest had to bring something in some fashion that would make the party better for everyone else. The more creative, the better. Alcohol didn't count. Lots of people did amazing things, and some did okay. But this one girl, who hung out with my fiance's crowd, a girl who seemed to consider herself the life of the party, decided that not only was she going to bring 2 guys no one knew, but she decided to stop at the dollar store on the way over, brought a bunch of packages of effing glitter, and cheerfully explained to each effing person she met that her contribution to the party was sparkles. She then would throw a handful all over you and walk away. She seemed to truly think this was the greatest idea ever. Every inch of my goddamn house was covered in glitter, and I was still cleaning up for years. In my bedroom, in my hot tub, my furniture. Most of my guests complained, and I was too busy to notice until it was too late. She was made to stop, but the true extent of it wasn't noticed until the next day. Needless to say, we don't invite her anywhere anymore. Her nickname is Forever Sparkles. TLDR, female dog came to a party and poured glitter all over my house. Story 66. We had 2 people staying over after a party. We only have 1 spare bed, so the person who confirmed last had the sofa. My best friend, who was staying in the spare room, hit it off with the guy at the party, so they stayed up talking after we went to bed. They were sure to be very quiet, as the other guy was on the other side of the room, asleep on the sofa. This guy pretended to be sleeping all night without saying a word. As soon as the guy left and my friend went to bed, he started posting passive-aggressive Facebook statuses up. He then decided he wanted to go home, so without saying a word to anyone, he just left, leaving the house unlocked. Our area is lovely, but there's a lot of opportunists passing through, and there's been some crime. We also had very close friends recently, deceased mother's belongings in the house. And the 3 of us didn't know he had gone, so if we had heard any noises, we wouldn't have suspected anything. As far as I know, he hasn't even apologized, but he's no longer welcome to stay at our house. Story 67. This was my 31st birthday party, at my place. One of my best friends was there, with his Spanish girlfriend. Let's call her Nina. This is an important detail, as she didn't really know well how French people usually act. She's not skinny, but not fat either. Just voluptuous, or buxom, you might say. And very pretty and nice. She's there, all smiles and getting more and more comfortable as my friends are cool, even though she only speaks Spanish or English. People are really nice to her, avoiding French sentences, until another friend of mine shows up with his girlfriend, let's call her Charlotte, who's a midwife. This also is important. Nina doesn't know that. They never met, like ever. When Charlotte is introduced to Nina, even before saying hello, she leans over and points to Nina's tummy with her index and touches it twice, like testing the elasticity of her body. She stands up and says in French, "Oh, okay, I was just wondering," with a smile on her Dagonish face. Yes, she's ugly as F. Nina stands there in shock, looking around to see if that's normal or not, pronouncing a soft but clear WTF. I'm in shock too, and I rush into the scene to explain how effed up this girl is, and take Charlotte apart, telling her that that's the last time she's embarrassing one of my friends under my roof. Story 68. My birthday is on New Year's Day, so I used to throw a party on New Year's Eve and get trashed with my friends. Good times. One year, the eve of 2010 I think, we had a pretty awesome party. Me, my BF, our 2 roommates, and a bunch of friends from school, college. Then the friend of one roommate showed up. It was already awkward with this dude because she met him at a bar, effed him, decided to be friends, and then offered him a mattress on her floor for a few weeks because he needed a place for a bit. So I guess technically he lived there too at the time, though not for long after. Anyway, he had a chick with him that he had picked up at a bar. Surprise! And she was absolutely wasted already. The whole talking too loud, wobbling about, I think she thought she was dancing, and still pounding back beers level drunk. I was like, I was having a good time, so whatever. But I did ask him to keep an eye on her because one of my pet peeves is people just bringing random people over without a heads up. Too many bad experiences with that. Well, she wasn't a thief, thankfully, but at around like 1 a.m., the girl was standing near the front door laughing at some conversation. At 1:01 a.m., she just fell backwards for no reason. Just lost balance, I suppose. Wouldn't have been too bad. The carpet was soft, except that she was standing by the door, in front of the bay window. Miraculously, she wasn't hurt, and thankfully we were on the first floor, but the window shattered immediately. Kind of put a damper on the party, to be honest. Dude paid for it to be fixed, though. Story 69. I've posted it before, but it's a good story. This was at my buddy's house. I was at a house party years ago, and there were about 10 people crammed into a very small bedroom. A 16-year-old girl does her first beer pong, with room temperature Milwaukee's Best, for non-Americans, one of the pissiest of pissy US beers. She managed to finish it, wide-eyed and shaking her head in denial of what we could all see coming. She proceeds to projectile vomit every drop of liquid she consumed, but for some unholy reason kept thrashing her head around as if to deny it or make it not happen. I've never seen so much throw up in my life, and since she was more or less in one corner of the room, I don't think there was a single person in there that didn't get hit by the explosion. My best friend, whose room it was, took the brunt of it. The initial blast took the poor effer directly in the face. I managed to curl up into a terrified little ball and only had the side of my arm and leg hit. It was just the worst puke ever. This kid had to take at least 2 deep breaths in between puke geysers. It was an amazing, horrible thing to witness, like I imagine a poison gas attack would be. Everyone reacted as though someone had dropped a grenade. Some tried to flee, literally climbing over one another and jamming up in the doorway trying to escape at the same time. Some, like myself, just sort of hit the deck and prayed they would be spared. It was a goddamn war zone of barf afterwards. Furniture had to be thrown away, a GameCube was destroyed. Afterwards, this poor girl just looks around in horror at what she'd done and breaks down into the most choking sobs I've ever seen. It took us a little while to feel bad for her, but of course, it could have happened to anyone. TLDR. Vomit grenade. Everyone keeps saying GameCubes are indestructible. There comes a point where every console owner has to look down at his soggy, vomit-covered, beer-stank GameCube and cut his losses. Might it have still functioned? Folks, that thing was a legitimate biohazard, and my best friend got puke in his eyes. Our priorities were elsewhere. I like to believe that if that gaming system was sentient, it would understand. Story 70. Had just moved out of town for college with my husband at the time. My best friend had brought her new shady boyfriend to visit, so we could all go out and party. After a long night of drinking on the town, we all came back to my apartment and go to bed. Friend had to leave early next morning to drive home to make it to work. My husband wakes up early, but after they had left, and wakes me up with a high-pitched yelling. I'm so hungover I can't figure out what he's going on about, so I come out of our bedroom to see what's going on, with like one eye open and the urge to throw up the night's booze. Suddenly, this awful smell hits my nostrils, and I run to the bathroom to puke and slip in something slimy. After tossing my cookies, I realize my husband was holding a solid piece of feces in his hand, and there's a literal crap trail from my son's bedroom leading to the bathroom. No exaggeration, there was crap on the bed, the wall, the carpet, the linoleum of the bathroom. I have a kid, and I had never seen that much crap, except in an outside porta potty. Turns out, friend and shady boyfriend had butt sex in my son's room, and she lost her bowels uncontrollably. From the time she must have ran from the bedroom to the bathroom. Needless to say, we were not very good friends going afterward, and she never really offered an apology. Story 71. So I'm 15 and living with my mom when a neighborhood schoolmate comes by to visit. This guy was a pretty normal kid, bit big for his age, and he chewed tobacco. Whatever. Gross, but I don't judge. Well, didn't back then. We're in the kitchen getting a drink, and I turn to give him a cup, and he turns his head and spits a big stream of brown juice on the carpet. WTF, dude? Hey, that's nasty, man. Well, I do it at home. I'm like, whatever, but here, please spit in this trash can. From where he spit the first time, he could have turned on his heel and hit the can. So next, he stirs his jaw a bit and proceeds to launch at the can, and hits the cabinet behind it, leaving a long running trail of frothy brown spittle running to the floor. Jesus Christ. Whatever happens next wasn't so much outrage as resignation, so we went outside and hung out for a short time, and then he left. So I visit him at his place a few weeks later, that he also shared with his mom. Stepping in, I notice a pungent smell and move to follow him to his room. As soon as I stepped off the tiled foyer, I took down to the modded carpet, which is blotchy brown and hard and crunchy underfoot. Wow, not kidding. The dude just spat dip wherever, all over his own home. Story 72. Okay, this will no doubt get buried, but I need to tell it. My former best friend called me one day and asked if she could come down for the weekend. I had plans, but told her she could absolutely tag along. Thought it would be fun. I was so wrong. We went to an oyster roast at a local vineyard and each got our own bottle of wine to drink there, and then a couple to take home. I had a couple of other friends meet us back at the house, and we had a dinner and a bonfire. Everything was going swimmingly. Obviously, everyone had a lot to drink except my husband, who had to work the next day. Didn't go to the oyster roast and only had a few beers while tending the fire. We moved the party inside, play Cards Against Humanity, then I decide to call it a night. My husband tells me the next day what went down after that. My friend, who's a woman and engaged to a woman, started feeling up my other friend's boyfriend, but when he went to bed, they were also staying with us, my friend tries to blow my husband, who refuses, tells him he, quote, knows he wants it, then gets naked from the waist down, pisses herself, throws up on my dining room floor, and passes out there where I find her the next morning. Fast forward a week. After much apologizing, she sends me an email saying how she feels like she had sex that night and feels taken advantage of, but will never have any proof of what actually happened. I immediately ask her if she's trying to say that my husband had sex with her without consent, and her response is, no, that's not at all what I'm saying, but that's exactly what she said. And it was then that I cut off all contact, blocked her from everything, and was done. Anyway, this is super long, and even though it happened 8 months ago, I'm still so mad about it. I'm shaking as I write this long, probably confusing story. As a bonus, when I went to change the sheets on the bed she slept in, she had pissed all of it and ruined the mattress. The end. I just don't understand. Grown adults with no kind of disabilities or anything that would inhibit them from doing so, that just totally lose control of their bowels and internal, waste excretion situation. All these stories about people crapping themselves, crapping the bed, pissing the bed. Like, I understand throwing up. Believe me, I've had many a drinks in my day and I've been pretty sloshed, but I've never at any point felt like I was in a position where I'm about to just crap myself or I'm about to piss myself. Throw up, sure, right? But like grown adults just pissing in beds and crapping all over the floor. Like, what is wrong with people? Story 73. When I was in college, I had a crush on this girl in my circle of friends, but was too awkward/shy to really do anything about it. Some weekday night, I'm doing German homework and get a call from her saying she's coming over to see me. She seemed sorta drunk, but I said, whatever. I'll finish the homework and we can hang out. She shows up within 30 seconds, so I'm assuming she was outside my house, and is effing trashed. Mind you, this is at like 9 p.m. at the latest on a Tuesday, but hey, college. So we go to my room and I'm just like, hey, I gotta finish this homework real quick, but then we can do whatever. She keeps pulling me back towards the bed, but is wasted and keeps falling over. I got her to lie down and finish my work. In the 10 minutes that passed, she was stone cold out. So I went downstairs, hung out with my roommates, and then came back to go to sleep. She's half on the floor and not moving, so I push a few pillows under her head and give her a sheet and blanket. Somewhere around 2 a.m., I wake up to what I think is running water. Nope, girl has propped herself up on the wall of my room and is pissing like a drunken racehorse. She got her jeans down, sort of, so she pissed on them and my wall and carpet. I knew there was no stopping that train, so I just laughed for a little bit and rolled over and went to sleep. I woke up the next morning with her sleeping next to me in piss-soaked jeans. Obviously, didn't remember a thing. Sort of lost my crush on her after that one. Story 74. A previous lodger/longtime friend of my partner invited her mother to stay a few years back. She okayed it with us first and we were all good. We were due to be away for most of the time that she'd be staying anyway. We get back from our holiday and start unpacking, etc. Partner goes for a shower. Couple minutes later and I hear a scream, so I go running to the bathroom. Lodger's mother had just barged into the bathroom while my partner was showering. This is kinda effed up in its own right, but what made it even worse is that she was supposed to have left well over a week ago when her daughter had gone on holiday. I ask her what the F she thinks she's doing/why she's still here, and she mumbles some half-assed excuse about her daughter saying it would be fine. I immediately call up said lodger and ask her why she thought it would be okay, and she had literally no idea her mother was still there. Turns out that before she'd left with her daughter, she'd cut a new set of keys to my house and then snuck back after they left together. I'm losing my crap. Lodger calls her up and loses her crap. While they're having this massive blow-up argument on the phone, my partner has recovered from her initial shock and gets up to go and make a brew. Phone conversation ends and mother comes storming out, hissing about, "Why did you have to tell Lodger I was still here? She's so mad at me. You have to fix this." She then proceeds to mock strangle my partner, whilst telling her she should have just told her to leave. It's at this point that I drag her to the door by the collar and throw her onto the street, chucking her suitcase out after her. Still got the locks changed just in case we made it crystal clear with the lodger that her family was no longer welcome. Legit seething again, just recalling it. Story 75. When I was 21, I had some friends over to my apartment in the basement of my grandmother's house. We proceeded to play beer pong and get drunk all night. Everyone passed out without issue, but at 8 a.m. the next morning, my grandmother wakes me up and says that none of our cars are in the driveway. Mind you, we live about 0.5 miles off the road through woods in a very sparsely populated area, so it would have taken a lot of time to walk and steal all 3 cars. So I get up and see that everyone is gone, but since they all drove their own cars, it still doesn't add up. I start calling them, and the first 3 have no idea. The cars were still there when they left. Finally call my 4th friend and no answer. Call again, and I get the FU button. Finally call a 3rd time and he answers. Says he will be at my house to get me in 2 minutes. I then hear the very distinct tone of my Jetta tearing down the road off in the distance, and then bumbling down my driveway. Him and 2 other friends say hi, and he apologizes for taking the cars, but tells me that I won't believe what he did. We drive out to the road again, and about 2 miles down, I see skid marks, followed by tire tracks way off into a muddy field. Off in the distance is his 80s Nissan Sentra, fully stuck up to the doors in mud. Attached to that by a long rope is our massive Chevy dually truck, also stuck but just to the axles. Then, attached to that by a chain is my grandmother's diesel Suburban, not stuck but damn close. He apparently tried to whip it up real hard around this turn on his way home at a way too high rate of speed and flew off into the field. Then walked back and took both trucks in an attempt to pull it out, but failed both times. then came back for my car to go home and get longer ropes and friends to man the vehicles. 4 hours later, they're all free, but he destroyed the brakes and rear axles on both trucks and ended up paying close to $3,000 repairing everything. A month after this, he got a DUI for smashing through a roadside barn shed selling establishment, smashing 7 sheds and falling asleep inside his car lodged inside the 8th barn shed. Cops found him without his pants on. Last I heard, he married a woman twice his age and she had 3 kids, the oldest of which graduated a year after him. Story 76. I let a buddy and my coworker stay at my dorm, and his wife had just divorced him and kicked him out, so I let him use my dorm since it was summer break and I would be staying with my mom. I told him he'd have to pay the rent though. It was a very expensive dorm and me and my mom could barely afford it, so he'd have to give my mom $450 a month. He agreed. So one night I get a call at 4 a.m. from him telling me that the cops are wanting to speak with me at my dorm. So I drive 30 minutes to the dorm to see what's up. I get there and there's like 20 cop cars and a bunch of people in handcuffs getting hauled out of the dorms. Go inside and see my friend with 3 cops around him. As soon as he sees me, he points and says, "There he is." Cops then confront me and start asking me a million questions about some party that I had nothing to do with. So I had to call my mom and get her to come down and tell the cops I've been at home and not at the dorm. Later on, I look inside my dorm and the entire place is trashed. Carpet is stained, mirrors in the bathroom are shattered, etc. So then I had to take some alcohol awareness class, got banned from living on campus again, got put on academic probation, and got a huge fine from the school, all because the dorm was in my name. So I'm surprised that OOP here is referring to this person as Buddy. I mean, honestly, who needs enemies when you've got friends like him that not only sell you out, but kind of low-key ruin your life? What a jerk. Story 77. Not me, but my dad. When he was first dating my mom, she asked him to house sit to take care of her birds while she was off with her family on vacation. Head over heels, he agreed. At the time, my mom owned 2 big-ass cockatoos. They were about $500 a piece, and they adored her, but they hated my dad. Bit the heck out of his fingers and arms whenever they were brought out. In fact, they hated him so much that the second day of him showing up to check on them, he found one of them dead at the bottom of their cage. He freaked out, considered buying another bird and pretending it didn't happen, and said all the while the other bird was just cackling at him, making that robotic ha 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 noise birds do when they're imitating laughter. He finally got the nerve to call my mom and explain what had happened, and she just laughed and said to put the body in the freezer, in a garbage bag. Apparently the bird was old as balls, had been on his last leg for a while, so she was expecting it. Not exactly the question OP asked for, but I imagine pet sitting and calling to say your $500 bird was dead on the second day might qualify. So just to touch on that last sentence, yes, it's refreshing to have a story that doesn't involve somebody defecating on themselves or pissing down their leg or getting drunk and throwing up. I mean, I feel like that has comprised like 80 to 85% of what we have read so far. So yeah, it's not exactly an answer to the question, but definitely appreciate the nuance. Moving on. Story 78. Trying to give the benefit of the doubt in this case, but it still pissed me the F off. My grandparents came and stayed at our house for a few days for the Christmas holiday. My step-grandmother, my grandfather had divorced and remarried a long time ago, was a heavy smoker, has dementia, and might be diabetic. This will be important a little later. I have a Jack and Jill type of bedroom and bathroom arrangement, where 2 bedrooms share one connected bathroom, and the other bedroom is now a guest bedroom, as my sister moved to our basement. This means my grandparents had to share my bathroom for the few days they were here. This normally wouldn't be that big a deal for me, except that they didn't tell us that she, my step-grandmother, uses adult diapers due to the dementia. So I just went in there one day to use the bathroom, only to find a diaper in my trash can and crap crumbs on the toilet seat. Story 79. When I was much younger, a bunch of friends came over to my apartment for a get-together. There was a lot of drinking involved, and as the night wore down, most of us, including my roommates, went to get some food down the street. One friend had a bit too much and decided to take a nap on the sofa. We came back and noticed said friend was now in his boxers on the sofa. Okay, make yourself comfy, I suppose. Then we stepped in a wet spot on the carpet. Dude had literally stripped down and in his drunken stupor determined the tile in front of the fireplace must be the tile floor of the bathroom. He then proceeded to piss all over the carpet. Another friend of ours decided to take it upon herself to get a sponge and water and clean it up. MVP right there. Bonus. Also pissed on the sofa on at least 2 separate future occasions. He did put all the sofa cushion covers and stuffing into the wash, so at least he cleaned those. Story 80. I have 2 oddly similar stories. Brought a few not too close friends back to crash at my place after a night out at university because they lived on campus, which was at the top of a damn big hill and the bus service had long since ended. Poor students, so taxi was out of the question. In the morning, I woke up with the regular post-night urge to piss like a racehorse and found the toilet bowl was filled with plastic. On closer inspection, it was the wrapper that our bulk rolls of TP came in. On closer inspection still, and fortunately before I removed it, I noticed it was smeared in crap. So one of them had gone for a crap, realized there was no paper on the roll, and found the next best thing to use. Then left the offending plastic wrapper in the crapper. Possibly vaguely understandable if it weren't for the fact that the cupboard they found it in also contained a considerable number of fresh rolls of TP. I did not invite them back. I returned back to my shared flat after being away for a couple of weeks on a business trip to find my housemate hosting a party. Totally cool with that. Where they were all huffing balloons full of nitrous oxide. Not quite as cool, but I'm not one to judge. I went to bed while the party was still going as I was jet-lagged as F and they took it elsewhere. The following morning I got up, crossed the hallway to my personal bathroom, housemate had an in-suite, and showered. I went to grab my towel from the towel rail and, praise Zordon that I did, noticed something amiss with it. There is a fetid crap smear across my bath towel. Once again, a house guest had used the next available implement to wipe their ass given an empty roll of TP, and once again, there is a cupboard full of fresh rolls in the bathroom. Those guests were banned from the flat, and my housemate bought me a new towel. Story 81. A friend of my brother, really nice guy. Not just saying that, he has a great heart. But he simply cannot control his drinking because he's also kinda dumb. We both do not allow him to smoke at our places anymore, except on the balcony, and yes, we often have to tell him, because he's incredibly careless with his cigarettes. At my place, I caught him nodding off on a brand new couch, a effing lit cigarette in his hand dangling over said couch. I yelled at him to use an ashtray. At my brother's place, he has a burn mark in his carpet because while he and a group of friends were digging through a bin for a video game, this friend actually put his cigarette down on the carpet and got yelled at by like the 5 people that were there. Also, this one time, while he was completely drunk, he had a slice of pizza in one hand and a tall white Russian in the other, and he obviously had to puke. In front of everyone, it was witnessed of him looking at the pizza and the drink like he was deciding which one to put down first, then puked hard on the carpet in front of everyone. Yes, he didn't even have the urge we get when we have to puke and run to the nearest bathroom or garbage can. Like I said, he really is a nice guy, but needs literal direction on how to function whilst drunk. Story 82. Oh man, used to have a party house in my 20s. We had a foosball table in one corner and a keg fridge dispensing beer made by a couple buddies who had a brewery running in their university lab. Biosystems engineering, it's a thing. 4 guys who were friends of my housemates were over for a bit one New Year's Eve while we weren't there, which wouldn't have been that unusual an occurrence. Our house was open to a lot of people, and we liked it that way. Usually it was no problem. We came home from whatever party we were at to find these a-holes had kicked in a bunch of drywall around the foosball table. Just chunks of drywall kicked out of the wall, all below waist height, along one wall behind the table. And not like, oh crap, I didn't mean to kick a hole in the wall, we better not do that again. Like 3 or 4 foot-sized holes over the stretch of 6 feet. The most responsible, and maybe least a-hole-ish of the 4, came by to apologize and tell us he'd help fix it. I used to paint interiors for a living, so I knew how to fix it, and at least he had the good grace to ask me what materials would be required and tell us he'd pay for them. One of said materials was an 8x4 sheet of drywall. I remember him agreeing to get it and asking, how will we get it here? I'd been pretty calm up to that point, but that was where I kinda lost patience and started yelling at him. We? F do you mean we? I don't give a crap how you get it here, just get it here. Ah, good times. Miss that apartment sometimes. Story 83. This was in high school. I was throwing a party and one of my friends had brought Jell-O shots with way too much vodka in them, so half of the party was barfing all over the yard. One of my other friends found out that someone had vomited in the sink without cleaning up after himself, and thinking that I'd become angry when I found out, decided to lock the door to the bathroom from the inside, and then climbed out the window and returned to the party. I found the door locked the next morning, with the key on the inside of the door, so I had to climb in through the window to find the vomit-filled sink before I could open the door again. And then there was, of course, the problem with one of the two bathrooms being inaccessible for the last couple of hours of the party. Good times. Story 84. While I was at work, my roommate invited a friend of ours over to have a little party. Just us three and his girlfriend. I get off work at 1 a.m. and get home around 2. What I come home to is my roommate's girlfriend sitting at our dining room table and railing coke. My roommate and our friend trying to clean up a shattered sliding glass door and blood all over the house. What happened is, apparently, my roommate and friend were drunk as hell. A bottle of Fireball for one and Jack Daniels for the other. My friend ends up trying to open the sliding glass door, which was already shoddy, and it slides off the tracks and slams down onto his back. He got cut up a little bit, but nothing too bad. My roommate ends up thinking it's a brilliant idea to just gather handfuls of broken glass and throw it over our balcony. He ends up with a gash on his wrist and cuts all over his legs. He's the reason the blood was all over the house. Oh, and the girlfriend doing cocaine? She was just a drug addict. Story 85. My roommate's drug dealer was at our apartment for a deal. He left. About 30 minutes later, he came back, pounding on the door to let us back in. His face was bloody. He explained that he left our place to do a deal in the parking lot across the street. The customer punched him in the face and robbed him, so he came back to our place to clean up. He was so frantic and distraught that he couldn't remember which apartment was ours, so he went through several apartments, high on drugs, bleeding profusely, banging on their door, and then running away when it wasn't us who answered the door. He had braces, and that was why his face was so bloody. The punch to the face had mangled his braces, and the twisted wire was cutting up his mouth. I told him he needed to go to the ER or quick care or something because, of course, he was a druggie with no health insurance and didn't want to risk police involvement. Instead, he opted to rub several grams of cocaine all over his mouth, smoke a bunch of crystal meth, take a bunch of painkillers, then go into our bathroom to rip his braces off with pliers. This process was obviously quite painful. It took him a couple hours with much screaming and many breaks to smoke more meth and rub more cocaine all over his mouth. I went to bed because I had work the next morning. When I woke up, he was gone, but before I could use the bathroom, I had to use a bunch of bleach and clean up all the blood that was everywhere, because of course he didn't clean any of it. Story 86. I know I'm a week late, but when I was 9, I had a birthday party that I invited a bunch of my friends from school to, including this one kid who I'll call Sam. My dad absolutely did not like him at all because he had accidentally damaged a wall in our house and taken some stuff from us during previous visits, but obviously, since I was an ignorant 9-year-old at the time, I didn't care too much and was still his friend. My friends and I are playing on my PS2, and Sam said he needed to go to the bathroom. So he gets up and leaves, and the next thing we know, I hear my dad yelling from the kitchen because Sam had taken a big chunk of my birthday cake out with his hands before anyone else got to have some, ate it. Then he went outside and started hitting the custom piñata we ordered while everyone was inside playing video games. I actually asked my dad about this a while ago, and I recall him saying that Sam had a deer in the headlights expression upon being caught dismantling my piñata. After this, Mom came to collect him early from the party. He wasn't allowed to come back, and we didn't talk at school anymore. Story 87. Flatmates come home with a couple of guys they met at a pub up the road. We have a few drinks at our place. Everyone's pretty tanked. A bit of singing and dancing, standard Saturday night fare. After a while, I head back to my room and leave them to it. And an hour or two later, I hear them all head back out to catch an Uber back to the clubs. At least, I thought it was all of them. Stagger through the dark to the bathroom at about 3 a.m. Pretty sure everyone is still out having a good time. I see a pair of unfamiliar pants on the floor in the bathroom doorway and think, that's a bit odd. Flick on the bathroom lights and am met with a scene that is permanently scorched into my retinas. There's some kind of chunky liquid sprayed all over the toilet, the floor, the sink, the bathtub, bits splattered on the walls. I'm not immediately able to discern if it's chunky puke or liquid crap. I'm not particularly keen on finding out. Take a step back onto the carpet and feel something slightly damp underfoot. There are brown footprints leading out from the giant puddle of liquid on the bathroom floor. Ugh. At this point, I've completely forgotten why I got up in the first place. I start walking back through my house back to my room, which involves walking through the living room. As I do so, I spot the owner of the pants. Here's one of the guys my flatmates came back with, face down, passed out, half lying on the couch, half kneeling on the floor, pale arse greeting me like a full moon on a clear night. He's breathing, so at least I'm not adding dealing with a dead stranger in my lounge to my list of things I never want to do at 3 a.m. again. Proceed back to bed. Mess and mystery human can wait until the morning. Get up the next day and find my flatmate had already sorted it out and vowed to never again bring home randoms and leave them unattended. I buy him a McMuffin and all is right in the world. Story 88. I've never had anyone pee in a corner, but when I was in college on student exchange, I lived in a dorm with a bunch of flats with kitchenettes and individual bedrooms for a few months, and it was rife with petty ridiculousness. My roomies were all girls from European countries, and they were great, including a Parisian girl. Her French friends were not so great, however. Background: I speak French. Anglo-Québécois. We were having a big gathering in our kitchen. There were a bunch of French girls there visiting my roomie, and there weren't enough chairs, so I was sitting on the counter. This was really uncomfortable in my tight jeans, so I went and put my PJ pants on. Later, I went back to my room, and as the French girls were leaving, I could hear them talking in French through the wall, making fun of me for putting my pajamas on, while I had guests like I was the rude one. And I wanted to stick my head out of the room like, y'all know I speak French. Are you effing seriously talking crap about me in my own house? These are the same girls who called my Québécois French accent cute like a little kid's on another occasion, so I already knew they were condescending craps. Whatever, a-holes, at least I don't sound like I'm talking underwater. But my roommate was nice and I didn't want to embarrass her, so I didn't say anything. Story 89. Oh man, my ex had some stupid effing friends. I have 3 stories. 1. Let's call him Will. He had just had some kind of eye surgery similar to LASIK, but not really. The recovery time was a bit longer. He apparently had to rest and not use his eyes for 5 days after the surgery. So we put him up in our guest room, and since I was unemployed, I basically took care of him. Brought him food and water and left him to his thing, which was mostly talking to his underage girlfriend on the phone. After he left, I went to wash the sheets like I always do after a guest stays, and found them effing riddled with cum stains. I told my BF to pick up some new sheets on the way home and just threw that crap away. Control your spunk, dude. 2. We'll call him Jeremy. I was in the Christmas spirit and decided to make a bunch of cookies for my new coworkers. I spent all day making cookies. There were 6 different kinds of about 3 to 4 dozen each. BF's little cousin was over visiting and was excited to try the peanut butter cookies I was making, but the dough had to set in the fridge and they were going in the oven last. Ended up baking them after he had left. Sorry, kid. But this mother effer Jeremy was over all day watching me bust my ass, making these cookies, and then, when everything was done, BF and I went to bed, and Jeremy stayed up all night playing my video games on my PC, smoking my weed, and ate every single one of the 6 dozen peanut butter cookies that nobody had even tried yet. And the ex wondered why I didn't like that guy. 3. Jeremy again. Despite my constant protests, the BF still allowed him to come over periodically. So he calls BF up and makes sure it's cool if he comes over. Normal day. Then, when he gets there, he lets himself in, and after him, I hear a woman's voice ask from the doorway if it's cool if her dog comes inside. Excuse me? This mother effer said nothing about a strange girl and a dog. Oh, and she's a hobo? Great! Don't get me wrong, I love dogs, but our cat was very afraid of dogs, so we didn't see her for 2 days once she found somewhere to hide. This mother effer.